There we go. Perfect. All right. Well, now that we have a quorum, let's get the meeting started. Welcome, everybody, to the August 11th, 2022 meeting of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both emergency procedures authorized by the Freedom of Information Act, the ARB has to make certain findings and determination for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask for in advance for your patience so that we can do all these before we can get the meeting formally started. First and foremost, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we have to verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all other members. So accordingly, I am going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that you all listen closely to your colleagues to make sure you can hear them. Following the roll call, we will do a vote to establish that we can all hear every other member. All right, so first and always foremost in my mind, Ms. Michelle Aubrey.
This is Michelle Aubry, and I'm in my home in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. John Burns.
This is John Burns. I am speaking to you from my house in Holland Hills.
All right. Ms. Camblin is not going to be able to make it. She informed Denise and I at the last minute that she had an unexpected occurrence come up, so she is missing. I am Christopher Daniel, Chairman of the Fairfax County Architecture Review Board. I am reporting in from my home in Reston, Virginia. Ms. Wan.
Yes, this is Samantha Huang. I am joining the meeting from my home in Reston, Fairfax County.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Kalinsky.
This is Stephen Kalinsky. I can hear everybody, and I am joining from my office in Alexandria, Virginia.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Murray.
This is Elise Ruff Murray. I'm joining from my residence in Vienna.
All right, I actually spoke to Ms. Knotkins today. She will not be attending the meeting, but has indicated that she wishes to be excused. Ms. Orr.
This is Kay Orr, and I can hear everyone clearly. I'm at my home in Alexandria, Virginia, and anyway, we're having our issues, but I can see everybody.
Thank you, Kay. All right, Mr. Plumpy.
Yes, hi. This is Joe Plumpy from my residence in Fairfax Station, Virginia. Thank you.
And Mr. Zellman.
This is Jason Zellman. I'm at my residence in Virginia, and I've heard everybody just fine.
All right. At this point, I will pass the virtual gavel over to my vice chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of this ARB.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Burns. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Thank you, sir. As determined by the roll call, 9 members of the ARB are present and therefore satisfy the minimum quorum. ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
Is there?
You cut out, Jason.
Is there? I just said, is there a second? I'm sorry.
Mr. Burns seconded, Jason.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically and what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. I therefore move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting through an electronically through Webex, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access through the ARB County website, or through phone at 1-844-621-3956 with the access code 2337-591-7150. It is so moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Ms. Huang. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Next, it is required that all matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue the operations and discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I can second.
Second.
Second, all those in favor, please.
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
All right, last but not least, the ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after consent agenda items and after each action item, as is standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. I think Ms. Huang got in there first. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstention? And the motion carries.
All right. One day I'll get faster at that. Maybe I don't have enough time.
Gavel back to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Zellman. All right, so called to order the meeting. We've gone through our special motions. We've established our public comment time limit. This moves us to our next item on the agenda, virtual meeting and Webex information. Denise and Grace, is there anything you need to share with folks attending and watching us?
Yes, thank you. This meeting is being recorded and the recording will be posted online within 10 days. Attendees may email me during the meeting or use the Q&A or chat function in the Webex platform for inquiries. Staff will monitor and respond accordingly. If you're calling in and wish to make a public comment, please indicate so by raising your hand, pressing *3 at the appropriate time. Attendees experiencing technical issues, please call Webex technical assistance at 1-866-799-3293.
Thank you, Denise. And now, as tradition, when we start our ARB meetings, we also lead them off with the reading of the statement and purpose of intent of historic overlay districts. Mr. Burns has graciously offered to do that. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to ensure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Next on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would look for a motion from any of the board members to approve the agenda that's been provided or modifications as they would like to propose.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Zellman,
I move to approve the agenda as is.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the motion carries unanimously. The agenda is approved. Denise, introduction and recognition of guests. Do we have any guests we need to introduce or recognize today?
I did not think so. Thank you.
All right. We have no items on the consent calendar for action, so we will skip past that one, which brings us into our items for action. Moving into this, I will remind applicants presenting that first-time submissions have 8 minutes for their presentation. If you have been to the board before for this application, we ask that you try to keep it to 3 minutes for that and focus only on what changes and updates have happened to the design and proposal. keeping in mind that we have seen all the materials that you've sent forward to us, so more focused the discussion on how that is being responsive to those comments. Additionally, another last reminder to any members of the public, if you have any comments on this after the presentation from the applicant, we open it up for public comment by hitting *3 on your phone or by raising your hand or indicating in the chat. We can call on you, and then we'll go to comments from the ARB membership. All right, the first item on our items for actions are ARB 22 HOL 16 7523 Elba Road Carport Repair and Shed. This project is being presented by Mr. Eric Wilbur, who represents the application. Mr. Wilbur, I think I see you up there. Can you hear me? And let's see if you can hear you.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic. I am presenting, I'm the architect as well as the homeowner, and we're adding repairing an existing carport roof and adding a storage/office shed next to the carport roof with a connecting breezeway roof between the two. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show the drawings that we presented to the DRC. The DRC did give us full approval for the proposal on July 20th at their last meeting. The existing house, and I think Mr. Burns is familiar with this as our first edition. He was on the board of the DRC and reviewed it, and we had actually proposed this as a phase 2, which at the time we didn't have enough money to complete it, but it was also approved in that. So we've resubmitted to the DRC for their full approval, which we received, and we're now with the new ARB process, we're presenting for the first time to the ARB. This is the line of the existing house. The hatched area represents the enclosed new storage shed / office. And this area where my mouse is the covered roof that we're connecting to this, so that we can walk out of the front door and go to the office without any covers. We're also adding a carport or a parking space adjacent to this. That's an extension of the existing driveway. And the second part of the presentation, I'll show renderings that show the before and after. I'm just going to go fast forward. Did everyone on the board receive these drawings and were able to review them?
Yes, Denise provided all of these in our e-sharing site. So we should.
Oh, okay, good. So I'll just touch on the highlighted part of this and go straight to the drawing. This is the proposed new layout here. This is the existing front entrance of the house and existing carport here. We've had some, since we did our first renovation, which was 14 years ago, we've had some roof issues where we had put in some LVL beams, and it's an existing built-up roof, and the built-up roof is pulled back from the gravel stop. And we've had some water damage this past winter on the LVL. So when we say in-kind replacement, we're essentially just going to rebuild this portion of the roof with the same profiles, but with a new structural and framing plan for that we'll hope will repair that. And then we're also replacing the existing tar and gravel roof with a TPO membrane roof throughout. And then our current gutters are 4-inch box gutters, which for the size of the roof we discovered was undersized a little bit because we've had some runoff and heavy rainstorms. So we're increasing the size of those to 5.5-inch box gutters. This storage unit here has a door that faces the street, and this door is going to be clad in siding similar to the existing door that's already clad in siding. So it's the same exact design. All the siding details, all the trim details are to match the in-kind to the existing house and paint color and profile and dimensions. The office will have a new doorway with the Holland Hill style window and side light next to it, and a glass full light door, which you can see in the elevations. And then we have two Holland Hills windows on the corner here. One of the comments that we had in our initial discussion was the neighbors wanted to see a little bit more relief on this elevation, so we added that corner window, which also we wanted to add anyways to make this a little bit more of an enjoyable space. I'm just going to go down to the elevations real quick. This shows the new roof plan of the house. This is the area of the new framing in this zone here, and this again is the new, it's all a low slope roof. This is the existing shed roof on the house, but we're replacing all of that with a TPO roof. And this kind of just shows this is the only area of demo and replacement. This is all existing. Zoom out a little bit here. So this is the front elevation which faces the street. This is the new shed elevation with the horizontal siding that goes across the doors. And that's similar to the existing horizontal siding that's under the existing carport, which is here. This is an open breezeway that's connected between the two. This shows the elevations with the corner windows that are the same proportions and dimensions as the existing house corner windows. And this is the entrance to the office area with the side light and the full glass door, which is similar. Any questions on this scope? Okay.
We'll get to those when we get through the public comment period and everything.
Okay. This is just showing the overall sections, so we have the architectural details, which show the profile. This is at the existing carport, and this is just showing, you know, we're using 2x12 framing, and we're sloping the deck to 1 1/4 slope, so it's a low slope roof. And then this is a profile of the box gutters here. This again is we're doing an in-kind replacement of the existing columns that are already on that carport. And this is a profile of the shed exterior walls and the slab on grade. We have two conditions. One is against the new parking space. So we're showing, you know, the Tico block paving system that we're using in the driveways. And this is just where the existing grade is in relation to the floor slab at the steepest point of the house. And that's about 24 inches from the top of that grade to the line, which aligns with the rest of the house at the base. And this is a section through the window showing the lower transom window and the Holland Hills style window mullions that are 2x6 rabbited frames to match the rest of the house. Okay, I'm going to go to the 3D views. I think this is the first one. Okay, this just shows the existing carport here. This is a little bit close up. You can kind of see in this image where the trim is deflecting a little bit. This is the reason we're doing the in-kind replacement of that long LVL that's there. And then this is existing Tico block paving system, and the driveway already curves to this point, and the extension is kind of behind these trees here for the parking space. So the parking space will be somewhat hidden from the front approach. This is a photo match taken from the bottom of the driveway. This is existing. This is what it looks like with the proposed. This is the breezeway between the new shed, and this is a low landscape wall at the parking space. This is at the left corner of the property line. And again, this is existing carport, and this is the proposed, and this is the low wall that shows the parking space edge. This is the right corner as you're facing the house from the street property line. Again, existing, the proposed, and then the low landscape wall at the parking space. This is what it looks like from the inside, from our side yard, which is south facing. This area where my pointer is actually an existing planter, and we're essentially, and this wall is our existing bluestone patio wall. So we're just extending that bluestone cladding around the base of all of this so that it ties in with what we've done on the existing renovation. The existing house starts here. Everything to the right is all existing and unchanged. The only thing that we're upgrading there again is the roof and the box gutter. And this is the corner window at the office. So you can see that you can kind of see through by having the breezeway, you can still kind of see through the carport. And that's, again, what this is. So all of this is existing. This is the demarcation between existing to the right and new, which is proposed on the left. And that's essentially our presentation, and happy to take any questions and respond to any
Okay.
issues.
Well, first, now that you're done with your presentation, I have to move to if there are any members of the public that have a comment. Denise, I don't know if you've noticed if we have any members of the public with their hands up at this point. I don't see any checking the attendee list right now.
Neither do I. Nobody in chat either.
Okay. Well, not seeing any, I'm going to assume we don't have any comments at this time, and I will go over to my fellow ARB members to see if they have any questions or comments to share with you. What I indicate to the ARB members, like we've been doing previously, if you do have comments, you can either indicate by raising your hand using the participant feature. Raising your hand on the screen, I'll try to notice you. You all are in a little thin band on the top now, so I don't see you all as easily now. So if you've got a comment, feel free to indicate or just unmute yourself and speak up. I think we're close enough that we can do that. And I think while folks are contemplating that, I normally don't go first, but I want to appreciate the fact that you got some clear delineation between the new structure and old. I think that's really consistent with the way our guidelines look to see things. I also think there's a fine level of scaling going on here. So from my initial perspective on this, I don't have many concerns given the materials as well as the plans that were presented regarding how it's going to be proposed. It doesn't overwhelm the structure like many of the other proposed designs we've seen with these small homes that seem to kind of just like grow off like a tumor. Instead, we've got something that's a little bit more complementary. So from my part, I don't think I have any major concerns. Looking across the room to see if anyone has their hand up. Okay, John, I see your hand up, and don't forget you got your special sentence you have to say.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin, I have a disclosure statement I need to read. I, John A. Burns, under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H, declare my personal interest in transactions brought before the Architectural Review Board involving the Holland Hills HOD, and specifically state the following. 1. Action item ARB 22-HOL-16 at 7523 Elba Road, Carport Repair and Shed Edition, and workshop items ARB 22-HOL-17WS, Bobotech Residence 2102 Mason Hill Drive Edition and Renovation, and ARB 22-HOL-18WS, 7204 Beechwood Edition, involve the Holland Hills Historic Overlay District. The nature of my personal interest is that I own and reside in a home that is valued at over $5,000 and is located in the Holland Hills HOD. I am a member of a group of 3 or more persons who are members of which are affected by the transaction, and I am able to participate in the transaction fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. May I continue?
Yes, Mr. Burns, you may continue.
Yes, aside from the fact that, again, we seem to be giving primacy to automobiles in front yards of Holland Hills houses, Nevertheless, I find that this is a thoughtfully done addition, and it is discreet. It is set aside slightly from the house. You can still see the mass of the house through the carport when visible through the street. I do have a question for the applicant. You mentioned that I was there when we reviewed the first changes to your house on the Holland Hills Design Review Committee side. And at that time, you were taking great pride in using siding that was milled from trees that have been cut on your property. I was wondering, does any of that survive, and will you be able to use it in the new addition?
Actually, what had happened with that, John, is after spending about $4,000 to have it milled and dried, we were unable to use it. So we we used it for a lot of the trim boards on the interior, but we were unable to get it to stay straight enough for actual siding. So we used southern yellow pine, but we did mill it to have a kind of special profile so that we got that square edge reveal that's similar to the T111.
Okay.
And we intend to match that for this edition as well. And we have some,
Okay.
After 13 years, we have some replacement that we need to do because the southern yellow pine is not the most stable wood with our weather changes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. I have no further comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, John. Any other ARB members with comments or questions?
Mr. Daniel.
Yes, Mr. Kalinsky. Feel free to go ahead.
Quick, don't want to belabor anything, but I echo Mr. Burns's comments. This is very, very skillfully done, and I very respectful of the architecture and the detailing, and happy to see it approved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. I don't see any other hands up. John, I know that's a legacy hand. We'll have to get yours down eventually. But otherwise, if there are no other member comments, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Daniels, I'd be happy to make the motion.
Mr. Kalinsky, please go ahead.
All right. Mr. Chairman, I move the ARB approve action item ARB 22-HOL-16 located at 7523 Elba Road, Alexandria, Virginia 22306, tax map 0933-13003 in Holland Hills HOD for the proposed repair and replacement of the existing carport and the addition of an accessory structure as submitted and presented at the August 11th, 2022 ARB meeting. Upon review of the materials, the proposal is found to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance 3101-historic overlay districts.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
I think that was Mr. Zellman who got in a little sooner than you, Mr. Burns. So seconded by Mr. Zellman. We have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you much.
All right.
Mr. Wilbur?
Thank you.
Denise will get with you following the meeting and regarding the final approval paperwork.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Not a problem. All right, following that item, that takes us out of items for action and moves us into items for workshop session. Just a friendly reminder to all the presenters, similar to the items for action, we ask that if you've been here prior to, you keep your submission to 3 minutes. If this is your first time, we're asking for 8 minutes. Present your concept, and then we'll move into discussion with the ARB members about said concept. Again, we have had all your materials sent to us in advance. There is no public comment on workshop sessions, so I won't be asking for that for folks that are in attendance observing. Our first item for workshop session is ARB 22 SPR 01WS 4957 Brook Forest Drive. It's a garage addition, and this applicant is proposing modifications to the heritage resource known as the Woodham House to include an attached 3-car garage addition. So for many of the members, this application comes to us as part of a proffered development condition placed on the property. So you might notice that it's not in a historic overlay district, and that's why, but it has been proffered that they have to come to us for review. So Mr. Jim Sogavas, and I may have mispronounced that, I apologize in advance, is representing the application.
Yes, hi, Mr. Daniel. This is Jim Savages.
All right, we can see and hear you well, and thank you for giving me a better pronunciation. I'm sorry.
Wonderful. No, thank you. If you would just bear with me one sec, I was trying to share the presentation.
It takes a few moments for it to leave the previous presenter and for Grace to get it to the next person, and then for that button to appear on your screen. So it should show up shortly. But if not, we can definitely work something out with if we have to show it on our end too.
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't see it.
At the bottom of your screen, Mr. Savages, there's a mute start video and then a share button. Do you see
Yes.
that?
Yes, and when I
Click
click that, it just gives me an open system preference.
Okay. So I'm happy to share your presentation. Grace, can you give me privileges? Thank you.
Is there a particular document you would like Denise to pull up?
In general, sorry, let me see if.
Yeah, I have your presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, just one moment. Sorry. It does take a while to get back and forth between the screens. Okay. Here we go.
Okay. Yes, perfect. So am I able to navigate it from this end now?
You'll just have to tell Denise how to do it on her end.
Okay.
Yeah, just tell me when to advance the slide. Just
I
say,
see.
yeah, next slide.
Okay. All right. Yes. Next slide, please. So this is an existing structure that the center of it was an older log cabin with 3 additions. And part of this subdivision, it was proffered that the home would stay and we would have the ability to add a garage just so that we could also keep it relevant and in keeping with the newer homes that are being built around it. Therefore, kind of securing that this home would be there permanently and not have anyone being tempted to otherwise modify or eliminate. Next screen, please. So here's the existing home before any of the construction or subdivision took place. As you could tell from this picture, the siding is all new. It's hardy plank cement board siding. Windows had been replaced. The exterior trim is all vinyl replacement, same as the porch columns, the French doors there that are stationary. And what you can't see from this you can see from the picture to the left of it is a bedroom wing. The center part of the house was existing. The bedroom wing was new as of about 50 years ago. Where the 3 French doors are is a dining room addition. And around the corner, which is difficult to be seen now, is a kitchen addition. And that's where we propose the work to take place. Next slide, please. So you can see the kitchen addition right behind the porch there, and that's the area where we're proposing to sort of mirror that wing with the bedroom wing, so that the house is more symmetrical, and that way the garage could then be as a side load garage to the building, so you wouldn't have this very long linear sort of motel look, if you will. Next screen, please. These are the interior photos of the kitchen wing and the dining room wing. You can notice the 3 French doors there. So those are, and you see the vaulted ceiling that's above the kitchen. So we would raise the roof pitch on that so that it would mirror, it'd be more symmetrical to the left side of the house, but the interior would stay the same. Next screen, please. This is a picture from the back. As you can see, this is the bedroom wing, and in the background there, you see the extension of the kitchen wing. these two wings actually line up. So in other words, the same distance on the back of the house, the bedroom wing is also the same distance on that kitchen wing. Next picture, please. These are photos from the baseline survey report that we had done during the subdivision process, which shows just different angles, but the top one is showing the kitchen addition. You see there's a bay window there, a little overhang. So obviously that bay window would be gone, that overhang. But again, we're not altering the house itself, the base house itself. And if you look at the photograph below, you see that kitchen addition, how that is half the portion or 3/4 of the portion of the addition to the right. And then the other two photos, just front elevation. Next view, please. This is just a copy of the proffer through the subdivision and why we're here with you all today. Next screen. And these are drawings from the baseline. To the left is the baseline study. So here we have dimensions and 3 elevations. On the right, we have proposed option number 1 at the top, which I think would be the preferred option so that we have some symmetry. You could see where the kitchen roof would be raised to mirror the bedroom wing to the left. And then the garage addition would be added to the side of the kitchen. And it would be a side load garage so that the garage doors would not be visible from the street or from any other home, versus the elevation below, which takes the existing house, leaves the kitchen the way it is, adds the garage, and it becomes a very long, linear, kind of unbalanced, and just seemed to me, in my opinion, more kind of an afterthought or a homeowner sort of addition versus something that looked a little more well thought out. Next screen, please. This is a rendering of the new homes that are being built around. And I believe the next image, if we could go to the next one, yeah, it shows the layout of the community. So there are 10 homes, 9 new homes surrounding our house. Our home would obviously, you could see to the right, you see the bump outs on the back. To the right would be the kitchen addition, correct. That would match the left, the bedroom, and then the garage would be added onto that. That area, that long strip of area that you see to the right of the house is all open area, meaning it's not going to be developed or built. It's all thick trees. So that's a wooded area, common area preserve that would stay. On the next slide, please. This is a front street elevation as you're coming in now. Our house used to face the main road, Westbrook Drive, and it was very nicely set on the property. Since they've come in and brought in a new road, a cul-de-sac, Brook Forest Drive, now the home, our home, sort of seemed like it was built sideways or sits sideways on the lot while everything else faces this new street. As you can tell just from this one image alone, the houses, the newer homes have taller roof lines, they're larger, so they sort of dwarf our house. And again, once the other homes are built around it, which at this picture doesn't show, 6 of the 9 homes are already up. They're in construction for the other 3. So this subdivision should be done by the end of the year at the current pace, according to the builder that purchased the property and are building the new homes. Next screen, please. This, again, is a representation of the front photo before the subdivision came in. Obviously, a lot of this is torn up from grading, bringing in public utilities. We currently have a pole, electric pole, to the right side of the building. As you're looking at this picture, all the utilities are going underground. So between them burying the gas lines, Verizon, Dominion energy lines, putting in sidewalks. A lot of the land around us was disturbed. So it's not quite as peaceful, as tranquil as this picture alludes. But now that the community is built with several new homes with 3-car garages, I think this would be more appropriate and similar in the neighborhood. And that's why we're requesting approval for the matching gable, to have a reverse gable on that side, increase the roof line of the kitchen. The materials would be the same, so nothing would change as far as color scheme or anything else. It would be this cement board hardy plank siding. The roof is a fiberglass material. Again, there was nothing outside on the exterior of this house that was of historic value. It's simply the center portion, which is an existing log home. Everything else was added on throughout the years and prior to our ownership. And I believe that's the last slide.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're well. Yeah, thank you. I'm not familiar with the process, so I'll mute myself and stay quiet. And
oh no, you well, so in a workshop session like this, so because we came just for a workshop session, it is a little bit more informal.
Okay.
So obviously you've got a concept and a design that you're proposing, and obviously for a workshop session, you're looking to get some feedback from some of our membership on how we feel this is appropriate given the proffer and the guidance it gives on what we as the ARB are supposed to be doing. It's a little unique from the other applications we get in because they're guided more by a set of guidelines that oversee what they're doing. So this one, I will openly acknowledge to all our members, is different. But obviously, I think we can all give you feedback on what we obviously would want to see for a package that would need to come in for full approval too as well. So I'll look to see if there are any members that have any comments they'd like to provide initially looking at the presentation. Scrolling through cameras and hands. And Denise, is there any additional information on the proffer you can give to us on this? I just, that was the one thing that I think it was helpful to see on the screen. And I don't remember if that was something I believe that was something that was in the package as well, the preservation conditions.
Yes, I did. I included it in the package in the summary of the zoning, of the rezoning case. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'd have to stop sharing my screen to do that though.
So, and I think you had them on the presentation, so you could pull those up too as well if you want, and go back to where they were on the.
Yeah, I believe it was number 8, maybe. There we go.
Because I think a key thing that is particularly, and maybe I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly, is obviously there's a lot of leeway given for the construction of exterior appendices and modifications to the outside. And it does mention the construction of a 3-car garage attached to the improvements in here, and it's highlighted in that in the presentation on the screen. So I'm of a mind that I'm not seeing in obviously I kind of agree with John's comment from the last application of the primacy of the car. But at the same time, given the scope of our role in this, I'm kind of flummoxed as to exactly where we can advise in the guise of protecting a historic property in here, given where the significant portions exist. And because a lot of it's surrounded by additions. I mean, from a architectural historian perspective, I'd probably to go back to what we could get to if that was possible, but I don't doubt the applicant's not wanting to do that, and I also don't know if that's even practical given how modified it is on the exterior. So I think my general response is obviously any application that's going to come back to us for full approval is going to need full design drawings and materials information, similar to the package that just came through previously for in Holland Hills. All that's going to be expectations from any of us as members to see when this comes back in. That's my initial just reaction to seeing the presentation. I don't know if there are any other members that would like to provide some observations.
Hey, Mr. Daniels.
Sure.
In reading through the historic preservation and heritage resources, this proffer B says the applicant may make minor modifications to the Wooderman house, including replacement and or maintenance of items such as wood trim, porches, windows, and other exterior elements. In addition, the applicant will construct a 3-car garage attached to the Wooderman house, as generally depicted on the CDP FDP. If the from what I gathered there, it's a 3-car garage and minor modifications to the house, but I'm not familiar what the CDP or FDP would be for this, you know, how it was depicted. And some of that leads to my questions, or separately, I was wondering if the applicant could describe where's the vehicle approach to this house? Is it adjacent to lot 10 or is it adjacent to lot 8?
It's adjacent to a lot 8. Actually, the way they subdivided it, you're coming in on the back of the house. I believe that's the next one, maybe Denise. Yeah, one more. Nope. There we go. Yeah. So if you could see as you're getting as you're heading or driving towards the back of the cul-de-sac, there's a little sliver there that, or an opening, if you will, and that's where the driveway will be coming. So you're actually kind of like a courtyard setting. You're driving along the back, and then it'll be a side-load garage. You're swinging into the garage. So that's why I said the garage doors would not be exposed. The garage elevation would not be seen. The side elevation would not be seen. You're facing trees, basically, or woods. And the picture that was depicted, or the diagram that was depicted during the time of subdivision and proffer, was actually that proposed option 1 that showed the matching or symmetric gable, if you will, with the side load garage. Let's see that one.
Then, I mean,
one more right there. Yeah. So option number 1.
So option number 1 was what was depicted?
Correct. Because that's what we had come up with at that time, trying to balance it out. The option below, the picture doesn't do it justice because it sort of shrunk to kind of fit in that little square. I mean, it was just exceptionally long. And when they first saw that during our meetings, everybody kind of oohed and awed. We're gasping for breath, thinking, you know, this just looked like it was going on for miles. So the option 1 was the one that was depicted, and that was the one that we were settling on.
So if that's the case, that option 1 was the one depicted, then, you know, kind of overcomes my concern that we would be not honoring or respecting what was proffered. So that, say, gives us the flexibility then to because this is obviously more than just a 3-car garage. There's additional second-story space for about another 50% of the second floor.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's basically raising the roof line to match the addition to the left versus anything else.
Okay. So from the historical perspective, our kind of duty is to make sure that whatever gets added on is complementary and secondary in the broadest terms, you know, that doesn't upstage or change the original character. Now, I understand that's already been done because the original portion has been enveloped within this greater mass. So that being the case, again, there's a little more flexibility. I would think that, you know, anything that tries to add too much would be troublesome. But we're really kind of beyond that. Now, from an architectural point of view, my concern with the option 1 is it has the, even though it is, you know, somewhat symmetrical in the facade, it kind of gives you the illusion that it's a 2 separate units put together, just the way the doors align on the front and the width of the house. You know, architecturally, it feels like, you know, 2 trying to disguise itself as 1. I think my solution now, I'm an architect, so, I'm looking at this from my lens, my perspective, and this being a workshop, I'm sharing this with you. My solution to the long extension on the right-hand side of the 3-car garage, if you were to do that, that's shown on the lower one, that I would do some sort of hyphen or try to break that garage away from the house by putting a smaller connector there, something that is acted as a node and would kind of break your eye from that long linear roof line. Even if you were able to turn it at 90 degrees and kind of create more of a court towards the back. But looking at your site plan, it looks like you're pretty tight and you won't have the room to do that. So I understand why that's not an option. But those would be kind of preferable solutions from my point of view, rather than trying to add the additional mass to create a symmetry that to me does not read as a single family house.
Okay.
Not a criticism so much as my input of why I feel, say, a little uncomfortable with the option 1.
I understand. Yeah, it seems, again, perhaps it's just the elevation or the sketch or the drawing, but it's very much kind of a colonial look that you would see and that we do have in Northern Virginia. Just perhaps, I don't know if the porch is throwing it off or just the rendering itself. But you're right. I too would have liked to see more of a courtyard, since you're entering in the back, to have that. But we don't have a space to either kind of create a breezeway between the kitchen then the garage, or to turn the garage. The setbacks just wouldn't allow for that in the back. So it has only one place to go, and that's the right side.
So if you were to take that gable form that you're imitating from the left, the one that you have on the right, and you were to shift it over the dining room doors that are there now, I think you would be more in context with the existing new homes based on that elevation that you had shown before. There's just a lot of real estate between the gables, and that's my
Yes, correct.
sticking point here.
Yeah, and again, I think that's probably part of the the drawing itself. The main body of the house is something like 28 feet. So I don't know if we're getting the full effect just looking at that drawing. It's not as stretched out as it may appear, but I understand what you're saying.
All right, Mr. Kalinsky, any other comments or observations?
No, that's just my input for now. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Burns, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have some questions about this, Mr. Souvlakis, not your design, but rather the proffer. In the document that Denise shared with us, it's labeled background. It says that the property has been listed on the inventory of historic sites since 1979. The construction date of 1790. It's described as a 2-story log and frame dwelling sheathed in weatherboard with later additions. And then later on, it says that aerial maps show the structure not appearing on site until between 1960 and 1976. And newspaper accounts suggest that the house was relocated and reconstructed at its present site in 1964. And that paragraph now ends, this dwelling is not listed on the inventory of historic sites in the comprehensive plan. So is it or is it not listed on the inventory? That's my first question.
Mr. Savagis, would you like me to take that one?
Yes, please.
Yes, that's Denise. I'm sorry. That's more a question for you.
For me.
A
Sure.
question of the county. Yes.
Right. So there were 2 homes on 2 lots, and
Right.
the 2 lots were consolidated and became this subdivision.
Right.
The first home, which is the home in question today that we're considering, was the Woodeman house that was listed on the inventory. The second home was the one that was moved to that property in the early 1960s.
Okay, so this house is on its site. It is the one that's across the cul-de-sac that is the one that was moved.
I don't think do not think that house exists anymore.
Oh, that's gone. Okay,
gone.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So that's the first question. Then, since that inventory in 1979 described it as two-story log and frame dwelling and sheathed in weatherboard with later additions, but we don't get any sense of whether or not the county believes that those additions have acquired significance in their own right. And were that to be the case, particularly the bedroom addition on, if you look at the front of the house, would be on the left side. If that were considered historic, mimicking it on the other side of the house would be creating a false sense of history by creating the symmetry. So the question is, in the inventory and in the county's assessment of this property, did the county only consider the log portion of the house as significant and not the additions, or what?
I believe that the site report was provided as well, and I believe that the site report only considered the log portions, but it also could be that the inventory nomination was written prior to the bedroom addition being 50 years old and therefore was not considered at that time.
Okay. Well, if the inventory just simply lists the log portion of the house, my concern about the bedroom addition potentially being historic is kind of goes away. And if indeed, as it appears, that the log portion of the house is the historic portion, it's safely ensconced and enclosed within the new hardy plank siding, the new trim, and the new fiberglass shingle roof, that's safe, and that the changes that Mr. Souvakis has proposed do not touch that portion of the property. That, you know, I would classify what he's proposing to do as minor alterations, and as Mr. Kalinsky pointed out, they are consistent with what is in the proffered condition B on the document that we have in front of us. And so because of that, I don't think that we have much ability to criticize. I think that what he's proposing to do makes sense if you look at the house as an object without considering. You really can't, since you can't see it, you can't consider the historic part of the house as something that needs to be carefully preserved because it's already encased in more recent materials. So because of that, I really can't offer any criticisms of the proposed solution. I do kind of like the fact that the little pipe stem that comes in off the cul-de-sac does not make the automobile as primary as it often is in these types of additions to bring garages and carports onto a property. It's kind of tucked around in the back, and you still have that open space in your front yard, and off to the side you're going to have the green space and the undeveloped lot adjacent to you. So I think all things considered, I think that this will work out okay.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you, John. Elise, I see your hand up.
The inventory nomination is, the inventory report is part of the package. And it says the structure has a cross gable at the later end that is a later addition. According to VDHR, this wing was standing by 1900. It creates a T on the front or south elevation. That strikes me as though that when Susan Hellman wrote this description in 2006, that she considered the gabled addition with the bedroom section as part of the design of the house that she thought was part of the significance.
Okay.
It's a document that says it's described. It's woodburn.pdf in your package.
And Elise, when I was reading this, John, that's what I was kind of driving my comments from, was reading the inventory nomination. It was very hard to parse what of the additions was truly being called out as significance other than being just called out as there, with almost all the emphasis being on the original log cabin. You know, that was where I love Susan, but I think this form lacks a lot of context to help us, and that gets into why we have the problem of when we get these we only have this to go by and what the proffer says. Because I think if you take one way of looking at it, as Ms. Murray pointed out, you've got potentially at least an addition in that L that kind of gets back to Mr. Kalinsky's comment of we don't want to mimic perfectly on the other side. But at the same time, I'm kind of looking at all the materials and replacements. I'm wondering, do we really have a, is it just the massing that is all that remains from that contributing feature there, and all the rest of the materials are so gone and changed that, just looking at some of the pictures of it since it's changed over time, it just looks like those additions have been modified several times. That's what I'm having a tough time juggling with is, what is there? And I don't know if Denise has any more nuance to add on it, or obviously Ms. Murray, if you do.
Well, my problem with it is perhaps the drawing I'm looking at is teensy tiny, and all I see is two matching gables and an expansive roof between them. And perhaps, perhaps a floor plan, perhaps better elevations, I'd be able to see what's going on. It just struck me as, to the person who's looked at a lot of historic preservation, but is not a professional, it struck me as though it was a little bit too imitative and too much sort of a violation of the, we want to make it look different principle. But I leave that for the design review people, because I can't tell from what the drawing I'm looking at what's really going on. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Daniel,
Please go ahead, Mr. Kalinsky.
I throw in there just with regards to those comments that this house ultimately will be over 93 feet wide, and I think that's part of the struggle that I'm having with it is how do you handle 93 feet of width of house and still have the semblance of the residential, especially something that was historical, scale to it. It seems to just stretch to a long piece. I mean, and I understand that second gable is looking to break that up, but it's the 45 feet in between the gables that just seems excessive still, and that's why I'm more in favor of some sort of break in the facade as opposed to adding to it.
And I agree, Mr. Kalinsky, with your comment about the fact that we have these two separate doors. It really does give the kind of mindset of two independent units, like a condominium almost set up with that the house has been split in some way. And the question I then run into when you were bringing that up is, okay, well, is there a way to do that on the facade that doesn't potentially modify what might be, in my mind, the actual original house on the inside? What we're supposed to be potentially preserving, because that right there definitely does, at least in my mind, that definitely does kind of make it a little bit tougher to stomach, is how large the design is. But that would be something I think, and again, when this does come back regardless, the drawings will definitely help speak to some of that. But even then, I do agree with the architects on our board that the measurement of the front facade is not going to change no matter how you render. That's a big front elevation.
Could I jump in just for a second?
Sure, absolutely. This is what workshops are. You're allowed to provide that input while we're doing this.
Okay. I'm not sure I understood the comment about a second door, and perhaps I can shed a little light because the elevations really aren't doing this much justice. But as you look on this screen that we have, as you look at the existing photo, correct, to the left, you see that the bedroom addition to the left. Then you have then you drop down into the porch. You have a front door entering the building. That's the historic part. And then staying in the porch, heading towards the right a little bit, right before what looks like 3 French doors. Those are stationary fixed windows, by the way. So to the side of that porch, there's another door entering into the house. So there are 2 doors in the front currently. And what you're seeing, the dining room addition in the front with the 3 French panel windows, that's actually the portion of the new, what will be a new matching wing. So in other words, we're not coming past that and going up with another section. That dining room addition that's in front there, that is going up and bringing the roof line of the kitchen behind it to give it that double wing effect, if you will, or the reverse gable. So you're not going beyond it. You're taking that portion of the house, and where the kitchen is now, if you will, that's kind of where you're adding the garage. So if you look over to proposed option 1, you see that little wing there, the lower part, all the way to the extreme right that says 3-car garage. So that's what you're adding to the building. You're not stretching the main body of the house and then adding the garage.
Denise, is there any way you can zoom in on that a little bit, make it a little bigger?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Suvagas. It doesn't read like that to me, and that's why I'm
Yeah, and I think a little bit of it is the elevation. When you look at the proposed one, do you notice under the porch, you see to the extreme left, there's a door, what looks like a French door, and then there's a window next to it, then a window, another window, and what you're seeing, that French door, that's exists now currently. That's a side door into the dining room. So those two doors exist currently in the existing house. So basically what you're doing is you're removing those 3 fixed French door panels in the dining room addition. And you're replacing it with 2 windows to match the other gable on the left. If that makes any sense.
I think it would be very helpful if we had, existing and proposed floor plans to help make sense of this, because
Okay.
I'm not reading it as you're describing it, and
Yeah.
sorry.
No.
I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just not catching on. It doesn't seem to be the.
No, I understand how it's confusing, because again, if you go to the proposed option 1 and then you drop down to the second one that leaves the dining room with the 3 fixed French door panels, it's not really showing you that door around to the side. So if you go underneath the porch towards the left side, you have the bedroom window, you have the door, you have a window, and then it just shows the 3, but you're not seeing that side door entering into the dining room, as where you see it more on the upper drawing. So it's just the drawing that's.
Given that this is a workshop session, I think one of the key things that you might want to take away, if you are considering coming back to us for approval for the next time you come back to us, is the set of plans and drawings. Obviously, 1 are required anyways for approvals, but that's going to be the key thing to help us understand. And I think what would be also helpful, obviously, you've already provided those in the package you showed to Denise, but photos showing the existing situation. Obviously, some folks do renderings on site. That is not an expectation that has to happen, showing those types of renderings. Those can sometimes be helpful, but I think the key thing is a set of plans that, obviously aren't, squished and morphed like you're working with here with the ones you've had to have for us. That's going to be helpful. Anything that can be done to help differentiate that addition, in my mind, is going to help it a little bit.
Okay.
I know symmetry is wonderful in some minds, but because this house has grown out of additions, it doesn't really belie symmetry. So a little bit of flexibility in what any changes are, I think adds character to it. If anything, that's if there's going to be a history to this house, it's the history of additions. It seems like.
True. Yes, understandable and very reasonable. I understand what you're saying, and I do think it would help. And clearly, this is my first time going through this process and presenting in front of you all at the ARB. So I wasn't aware I wasn't certain as to how detailed of drawings we have to provide. Obviously, if you're going to go to the county for a building permit, you can't go with this elevation. So we would need floor plans.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And so whenever you do come in for an application, the expectation that the building permit's going to have for their full set of drawings and plans, in addition to that, we're going to want to know materials and things like that.
Okay.
We're going to want to see that too. We've made a very big point about lately, we don't want to accept things in good faith that's what will eventually get built and sent to the building permit folks. So eventually, obviously, you'll have that for a workshop session. This is fine. We don't have to have full sets of plans at this point. But as you can see, that does result in some questions from us about what we might be looking at. John, is your hand up a second time or? Okay, John, I want to let John have a chance to provide a little more feedback, and then we're not necessarily going to be able to solve it all for you today, but we want to give you enough to go back with so that you know what you need to make or update to come back to us for.
Okay, all right. And if I can ask, or is this something that maybe I should do separately? The next step from here is obviously to gather that information and then submit for approval, or
So there are two options you could go with here, and I'll let John talk afterward. One is you feel like you have enough information that you think you could come back in for a submission for approval, which means you'd have to have the appropriate plans, drawings, and submissions that sent in to Denise that would come to us. Drawings that you would be using for a building permit. Another option is you get those drawings put together and you have them at a 65%, and you bring them in for another workshop session, and you come in and get some feedback from us again for another round. We've seen projects come in for one workshop session and go for an approval. Seen some come in for 5 workshop sessions and go for an approval. There is no formula. It depends on the project and the application. I won't say there's one size fits all on this, but I don't want to cut John off because he may have some observations for you on this.
Okay.
Mr. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was looking at the aerial photograph. It is page 12 of 14 in the document labeled 2020_10 Woodman's Baseline Survey. If you look at that, I think that gets to Mr. Klinsky's concerns about floor plans would help to explain an awful lot. But it appears as though what you're describing as the dining room addition is set back from the face of the bedroom addition. And if the new 2-story portion you're proposing in your option number 1 were in line with the facade of the house, rather than forward of the house like the bedroom wing is, that changes the geometry. And if the garage is the same depth as the depth of that, it's a way deeper garage, and you're going to have a 30-foot deep garage. So I think the floor plans, if you look at the geometry of the floor plans, will tell you an awful lot about what might work and how you might do things to break up that long, 93 feet, I think Mr. Klinsky said, facade. And if you can break it up front to back some and increase the third dimension of it, it will not read as much as a single long unbroken line. So that's all suggestions for taking a closer look at what the implications are for fitting the garage into the space that you have available. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So could I comment on Mr. Burns's
Sure.
remarks? The house itself, I'm on the report, the baseline report, and I see the aerial. The house is basically an H shape or a letter H. So the kitchen and the bedroom both line up together. The dining room portion actually is flush with the bedroom. It's not set back. It's sticking out past the house. That's that gray lower roof as you're looking at the aerial photo. So where you see the red brick in front of the courtyard, the gray lower area represents the porch roof and then the dining room. So if you just kind of draw a straight line across the bedroom, the front of the bedroom wing and that dining room are flush. And so it would be like the letter H, both wings, obviously right and left, it'd be symmetrical. The center portion of the house, by the way, as I'm looking at the floor plans that the architect kind of provided, it shows that the main body of the house is 20 feet 4 inches. The bedroom addition is 15 feet 5 inches. The dining room addition is 18 feet 3 inches. So the main body of the house that we're talking about is 20 feet 4 inches. I don't know how it seems so larger, but it could be just the drawings or elevations. This is after the elevation photo. The next one is the floor plan that was presented in the Woodman baseline survey. That one. So if you're able to see the dimensions on the bottom of the drawing where it says floor plan, right above the word floor plan is 15 feet, 5 inches. The center portion where it says front porch is 20 feet, 4 inches. And to the right, the dining room is 18 feet, 3 inches.
Well, I think this speaks to the concern that Mr. Kalinsky and Mr. Burns brought up of ultimately when this comes to us, a set of plans and an understanding of the layout of the property. Working with this is going to really help us understand the full proposed addition.
Yeah. I was just a little confused with the 90-foot house because I thought, wow, that's pretty big. But it didn't feel that way to me because I've been there and I didn't think it was. But as we're looking, adding these numbers, 15, 35, 18, we're close to what, 60 or under 60 feet. So yeah, the center part of the house, the actual log cabin itself is a very narrow portion.
Well, I'm not seeing any other hands up, so hopefully we've given you enough information to go back, work on a potential design, decide whether or not you want to come back for another workshop session, or if you think you have enough to come in for a proposed application for approval. Again, all those requirements are listed on our site for what's needed for that. But as you pointed out pretty astutely, what you're going to need for a building permit, that's what we're going to be expecting as well on our end. That's going to really, we want to be able to see exactly what's going to be built if we're going to approve it.
I understand.
Beyond that, thank you very much for the presentation and working with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you very much.
All right, that is our first workshop session down. This takes us on to our second workshop session, which is ARB 22 HOL 17WS, the Bobotech Residence Addition and Renovation located at 2102 Mason Hill Drive. This application has been to us before for workshop session previously. This is the second workshop. Do not have an indication as to who is going to be presenting this one.
Yes, I apologize. I left Mr. Cheng's name off of the the agenda.
Oh, there he is. I just saw his face appear. Mr. Cheng is presenting. We'll see if we can get you sharing abilities there, sir, and we can get your presentation up.
I have it. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Give me just 1 second.
And then just like all the other ones, since we've seen you before, I think focusing more on where the changes are is the key here, since we know the application.
Absolutely. I'll go through this quickly. It shouldn't take long. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. Let me just get my highlighter on. Okay, so we presented to you just last month, and what I want to do is walk you through the design changes which respond to the comments and concerns that you expressed during our last workshop meeting. And so this should be pretty easy to view. On the left-hand side, you have the graphic of what we reviewed with you in July last workshop, and on the right is the revised conceptual design. And so what I want to do is just focus on the changes. You can see that what we've done, as John suggested at the last workshop, we have shifted the driveway location north. And what we've done is we've been able to really reduce the size of the driveway and the length of the driveway in doing so. And so we no longer have this large, expansive paved driveway area. We've also been able to eliminate this long curved site retaining wall. We've shifted the entire addition over to the west as much as possible. And we have relocated the entry addition which was originally on the east side of the existing house, and pushed it around to the north side and adjusted the patio to work with that new entrance. We still have a 3-car carport at the lowest level, but here you can see how much smaller the driveway is, just enough to get in and out of the carport, and the driveway is now located here. We no longer have all of this grass paved, the extra parking, and this long sweeping curve of a driveway. Moving up one level, what we did was we shifted this connection, a vertical circulation connection, which contains an elevator and stair to the west 3 feet. And we also shaved off 3 feet from the south addition to try and expose more of the existing home. And we have also, in moving the entry addition, we were able to maintain these existing windows on the east side of this lower existing basement bedroom. Moving up to the main level, once again, we shifted the connector over 3 feet. We've shaved off 3 feet from the south addition. And here you can see this entry foyer addition has been shifted. We've created a small entry foyer on the north side, which comes into the house at this location where the highlighter is. And we've adjusted the patio to work with that entry foyer. And now revised renderings to show you the impact of these changes. On the left, there were some concerns about the massiveness of the proposed addition, really taking prominence over the original house and the overhangs. And on the right, you can see what we've done is we've reduced the overhangs as a result of both your comments and prior DRC comments. We have reduced the size of the driveway. We're sloping the lawn down into the driveway. We no longer have that large sweeping site retaining wall. We're going with a flat roof for the addition to further minimize its mass. And when we go with a flat roof, it doesn't make sense to have these deep overhangs, so we're reducing the overhang as well. And then here in going with the flat roof, pushing the addition as far west as possible, you can see that the addition now is more recessive, and deleting or moving that entry addition, you can see that the existing house really comes back to prominence and as in the forefront in terms of street presence. And here you can see we're maintaining the existing lower level bedroom windows. In terms of differentiation, what we've done is we're proposing to keep the horizontal wood siding on the existing home, and we'll use T111 on the addition, and we'll probably further differentiate with a difference in paint color, which you can see here on the right. And lastly, coming around a little bit more to the northeast corner of the property, you can see that we have relocated this entry addition, which obscured the east elevation of the original house, which was the street elevation, and we're maintaining the elevation as is of the original house. And here is the more modest entry on the north side of the existing home. And so that's what I have to share with you today. Happy to receive any comments, answer any questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chang. I will scan across our members, see if anyone's got their hand up. Mr. Plumpy, see your hand pop up.
Yeah. Boy. Yes. Could you go back to the site plan, sir, real quick?
Sure, of course.
I just want to make certain that you have adequate circulation space to back out of the garage and so forth. How wide is your from your driveway, proposed driveway that parallels the garage doors? How wide is that dimension, please?
Well, we don't have any garage doors since it's a carport, but we're going to provide. Sure, we're going to provide at least 16 to 18 feet so that they can do a 3-point turn.
Okay. Frankly, that's a little tight considering, and just my observation. I have a similar situation here, and you think about a parking lot is basically have, a parking space is 20, then the drive aisle is 20. So that's, maybe I'm concerned. Well, first of all, I appreciate you not having such a large driveway, but I want to make sure that you don't have to have it so laboriously to get out of the carport. I would be in favor of widening that pavement for circulation purposes.
I appreciate the fact that you actually brought that up. I do want to keep in mind and remind everyone that this is a conceptual design.
Okay.
We're always looking to make sure that the carport has enough depth to accommodate not just compact cars, but longer vehicles.
Exactly.
And you're absolutely right, because what we want to do, since we've reduced the size of the driveway, we no longer have all of this extra space. they're going to come in head first, park in head first, and we want to make sure that there's no problem backing out and then being able to go head out.
Okay.
And so we need to look at that. We'll work on it with the civil engineer, but this is
Please do.
conceptually the idea here is, again, to address your comments and concerns. To
less is more.
Yes, exactly.
No problem. Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Any other comments from members of the board on this design? Changes from seen.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Swan, by all means, right ahead.
Yes. Thank you so much for the revision today. I can totally see that there's a lot of effort to put in, try to minimize the messing, and on the back, the entrance modification, it makes so much sense compared to last time, and makes sense that's it's going with the step, and the driveway is moving to it. The both entrance, one is walkway, one is driveway, now make a lot of sense. I still think the massing is big. Understood that is because of the program required. I recall that we see several presentations in the past, the way they trying to make the addition and the existing more disconnected. The way they're doing it is using the rotation, using the angle. So for example, like the addition is slightly different oriented. It looked like your site might have that chance to do that. I wonder if you ever consider that.
We did consider that as an early design option. Part of the challenge of that, though, is that if we rotate the southern addition, what that does by necessity is it tends to push the entire pool and pool deck further south. And one of the things that we tried to do as part of our interaction with the DRC here at Holland Hills was to pull the pool and pool deck north and integrate it more into the addition and design rather than having it floating further south. And so Mr. and Mrs. Bobotech have been very willing to work and to compromise, to frankly give up space in reducing the size of the addition by taking 3 feet off this entire piece and shifting all of this over. But we don't feel that given what we've studied in terms of prior designs, that turning the south addition on an angle will work for us. And in fact, what it does is we actually used to have this connection was longer, resulting in more of and let me go here, you can see this glass separation. So we purposely made this glass separation in between the addition and the existing house to try and give that separation, so that there's some differentiation between new and existing. And it was a little bit longer before, but again, one of the consequences of that, and we talked about this in July, is that the further we move the addition south, whether it's on an angle or increasing the distance between the addition and the existing house through this glass hyphen, it makes the addition seem taller and bigger because the site is sloping downward. So the farther south we go, the bigger the addition seems to feel because the grade is working against us. But I do understand your question and comment.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Burns. I don't know, I cannot see nor can I hear you at the moment.
Always helps to press unmute.
There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the Bobotechs and Mr. Chang for the changes that they've made. I think that they listened very carefully to the feedback they got at the workshop session last month. I applaud the ability of the new design to keep intact the end wall of the historic house and tuck the new entrance around out of sight to protect the integrity of that end of the house. I like the fact that you're keeping the siding and differentiating the new work with a different type of siding and a subtly different color. That's all very helpful. I like the fact that you squeezed it off 3 feet further down the facade of the original house. It loses some space. Saves you a few bucks on construction, I guess, but it allows more of the original house to maintain its dominance on that slope as the land slopes away from the house. I'm still a little concerned of the massing, but as I said last month, there's not a whole lot you can do. This is a very difficult site in terms of its topography. One thing that I do remember, and I was going to question you about that, but I think you've already answered this question, is Fairfax County says you're not supposed to be over 35 feet above grade to the midpoint of the roof. And I was concerned that the first design would have violated that. This time design, I think you can probably just squeeze in under that. So you should be fine. You mentioned not having the large overhang with the flatter slope roof. You're still going to get a huge amount of sun load there, so some overhang might not be a bad thing in that instance. Maybe not as large as it was in the befores, but that's something to consider as well. I like the new driveway, but I agree with Mr. Plumpy. You need to have room to be able to maneuver successfully. While an awful lot of people in Holland Hills own Priuses and Cooper Minis, not everyone does. And so you need to have adequate space to be able to maneuver your vehicles. The current slide that you have up, the hyphen that connects the mass of the new addition with the original house, right where your highlighter is there, it appears as though the roof of the hyphen comes in above the lower edge of the gable of the original house. Is that correct? Is that I'm perceiving that correctly?
That's correct. It comes in just above the gutter line. That's correct.
Okay. Because it seems like that's a spot where it might be nice if the hyphen could somehow be a little more deferential. I don't know if that's the same height as the main part of the addition, the same roof plane as the same part of the addition. Is it possible to drop that a bit so that it doesn't seem to come in over the house?
Yeah, so that's something we'll have to look into. And again, this is just conceptual design at this point. One of the reasons why it is where it is that with the residential elevator that we have contained in this hyphen, because the hyphen has the stair on one side, a hallway connecting, and then on the other side, it has the elevator. And the elevator does require a minimal overrun or headroom within the shaft itself. And so because the floor to floor, as you know, and here in Holland Hills is so low because we have 8-foot ceilings, it's going to be very difficult. So if we were to try and lower the roof at that hyphen where you see it here, where it connects, what that's going to do is it's going to result in the connector having two different roof levels because the residential elevator shaft doesn't have enough clearance. I know that already just from the preliminary sections. So we thought it would be a lot cleaner just to have a single roof, even though I agree with you. Initially, we tried to get that to align. It can't go any lower unless we're going to have a 7-foot or 7.6 ceiling in that connector, which we don't want to have. But that's the reason why, John.
Okay. All right. I certainly understand that. Something else, just a suggestion. I don't know if it would work, but if you had a shallow cross gable to the original gable at that lower angle, might you get at the peak of that enough room clearance for your elevator at the peak of that gable? It would drop the edge that we're seeing here in your rendering down to hopefully in line with the gable of the original house, and then it would. And you'd barely see it because of the topography, slope up enough to cover the top of your elevator. Just a suggestion, but playing with that geometry is elevator shafts are not forgiving.
Right.
there are other things he could play with, but he can't mess with an elevator shaft.
Right.
But it was just a subtle thing that I see. But overall, I'm very pleased with the evolution of the design. I thank you very much again for the respect you've shown for the comments you got last month, and I appreciate all the work that went into making those changes.
Thank you. Thank you. We worked really hard to think about all of the comments that you all offered. The Bobotechs have been, as I said, very accommodating and good to work with. They understand some of these compromises, and in the end, we feel that we have a really good design. The core of the design is still intact, but if you look at the left and the right images on screen now, you can really see how the original house is back in the forefront, has its street presence, and we've done everything that we can within the site restraints in terms of setbacks and the slope to push the addition as far back as possible so that it doesn't overwhelm the original house. So we're happy with it, and we hope that this second workshop in general, you all feel much more comfortable and don't have all of the comments, negative comments or concerns that you had from July.
All right, I'm not going to say much since I think you've already heard from much of the rest of us, but I agree. I really am appreciative of the presentation of the before and after changes really helps explain the design changes, and I wish we saw this more often when we worked through workshops so we could see that. I do think it's definitely softened the scope and scale of the addition to something that I think is much more palatable. And I'm really appreciative of the homeowner being willing to work with you all with our feedback and comments on it. I think you've gotten some good impact or input from Mr. Burns in particular, as well as Mr. Plumpy regarding the garage, as well as some of the ideas with the hyphen and maybe some more further tweaks and changes that could be done. But I definitely think, as you said, I know you're in concept stage, but I think ultimately when this comes to us for the final submission, the design drawings will be really the will be refined enough that I think we'll understand what we're looking at instead of looking at it super fresh and brand new. That'll be really helpful. Unless there are any other members that have comments, Samantha, it looks like your hand is up, like you want to say something. So by all means,
Please allow me. After Mr. Burns' comments, I look at the upper floor plan. I think the missing things that we really try to see is the existing and new can somehow be more disconnected. And that's why we were looking at right at the connection where the new and the existing. The staircase, it might be able to lower the roof at the street side, even though we have an elevator height issue. If that connection only have the landing of the stair, so perhaps play with the roof height there because of the landing and without extend the living room floor into that corridor area, that might be able to get you some work room at the roof there, if that makes sense.
It does. We have preliminary framing plans from the structural engineer. It's beyond this workshop to get into that level of detail, but we can definitely take a closer look at the framing at this connection, which is complex, to try and lower the roof line right here on the street side where it joins the existing house. And then what we'll have to do is make some accommodation for this elevator shaft. But as John said, from the perspective and the street view, just by the nature of the fact that you're going to be, much lower, you really won't sense that or see that. So that's something that I've taken note of, and we can certainly look into that. Yes, and we'll also, I think the prior comment on making sure that there's enough room to back out of the carport and safely make the turn and go back out, head out is exactly something we were discussing. But again, at conceptual level, we're simply pointing out that we're moving the driveway and we're making it smaller.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thanks for all your comments. Are there any other questions or comments?
Not seeing any other hands up at this time, nor any other hands digitally or physically. So I think you've gotten all our feedback tonight. Again, thank you for coming back to us. And we'll look forward to seeing you again once you all go from concept potentially to full design.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and we'll let you get on to the next workshop.
All right.
Okay.
As Mr. Chang indicated, we're on to our last workshop of the evening, ARB 22 HOL 18 WS 7204 Beechwood Edition, located on 7204 Beechwood Road in Alexandria. This is a proposed entry and living space addition and remodel. The previous version of this was reviewed via a workshop item. Mr. Jeremiah Huff represents the application.
Hello.
There we go, sir. Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, great.
See and hear you loud and clear. Do you have a presentation, or is Denise sharing something for you? Oh, there we go.
I have a presentation, yeah.
Coming right up. Perfect. You know the drill already.
Yep. Thank you. Let me just get this in the full screen here. Okay, so yeah, we're back here for the workshop, and you guys are familiar with this project. So we've spent, a little bit of time reworking things and put this presentation together. So we have some new ideas here to share. So I'm going to kind of go through kind of the background of how we got there, some ideas that we thought of, and then where we're at right now. Okay. So just going through just a little project information slides. I'm going to jump to kind of the more nitty gritty. Holland Hills here. We are on the old side of Holland Hills. This road here is Fort Hunt. So you come in on the main part by the pool, and we're on the east side of Rebecca Hill here on Beechwood Road, that pink blob. So our house faces north. We get really good south and west sun exposure. From the east, it's pretty filtered with trees. Some plot here to show you the extent of the plot. And we also finally got the...
Mr. Huff, I don't know if it's happening for everyone else, but I am actually, your presentation is not progressing. I just see your main picture. I don't know if that's anyone else that's having that situation. Okay, yeah. I'm not sure why it's yeah, we're seeing
over the other screen here.
Now we got your
see the
desktop
progression
background, gorgeous mountains.
Oh, no. Okay, let me
I mean, we can see it now in the what you're showing. We're just not seeing the presentation mode. So if you want to strike the thumbnails, that'll be fine too. I think that'll work for us.
Okay, I think I could just switch screens.
There we go. There we go. Now you're good.
Okay, so back to the Holland Hills map here. So we're on the old Holland Hills part. The pool, when you pull off Fort Hunt, coming down Paul Springs, and then we're on Beechwood, just on the east side of Rebecca Hill. So street side is north to us, so north and the east side of the home faces the street. And we finally got the Dan Colley landscape plan, because really thinking about these homes, you really have to think about the landscape as well. And we've already started to kind of implement some of these strategies. And the type of house here, so we are the type 2, actually the type 2 K4B4, because there's an extra 4 feet to the kitchen and bedrooms, and the back bedrooms have an extra window. So the standard type 2 just had 2 windows in the back. We have 3 windows in the back. And our particular unit had an addition. We're guessing sometimes the 60s or 70s at that little bump out on the west side. And then some rearranged interior. We're guessing the 80s, 90s to add in a half bath and rearrange the kitchen. Just so since we moved in 2020, we've done some cosmetic updates. But what's really bringing on the renovation and addition is because we've done some things here and there, but really a lot of mechanical systems, electrical systems plumbing systems need to be updated, as well as getting us a little extra square footage. So site diagrams here show you the sun exposure on the east, south, and west. We have good tree coverage on the east and the south, so it's not really where we get a lot of solar gain. We get a lot of solar gain after noon, 1 o'clock on the west side, because our neighbors to the west have removed a lot of their trees. We're also on a very steep slope, so these type 2 houses were typically built on the flatter plots. They found just a flat enough spot on ours to fit this house in here. To the west, it ramps up pretty quickly with a berm, and to the east, it ramps down pretty quickly as soon as you walk out. So we do get quite a bit of storm runoff from the south and from the west, which does pool around the chimney, and we get a nice river when it rains through the front yard. So there's some later slides where we might try to address that in some later ideas. Some of the street views going from the west to the east. And something that really, doing some research in this was these type 2 houses, a quote from Charles Goodman is, with these overhangs and thin dimensions and thin edges, these houses appear in Goodman where it's to slide through the trees. So that was kind of a driver and kind of our concept of how we're going to attack this addition process. So first, I'm going to just talk a little bit about our entry. Getting some feedback from the last meeting, we're going to reduce the entry to just the dining room living space side and not the chimney side. So we worked on a few different massings, different roof styles. We have the gable, flat, and the shed roofs. We didn't experiment with a butterfly too much for this. But we prefer kind of keeping that gable edge in line with the existing roof, and then just a shorter gable on the west side to reveal more of the chimney on this corner here. And for materials, we're thinking of sticking with that stained wood. The existing home will be a darker painted wood, which is the traditional Holland Hills, but we think differentiate it with that stained finish. And then for the main addition, here's where we were with the massing on the front, covering everything with different materials. So we took, just looking at this in 3D to really look at the volume of the home. We have the existing on the left, and then where we were previously. And some of the feedback was like, just push it to the back. Let the home be be more dismissive. So we kind of looked at that some more. We weren't really too thrilled with just pushing it to the back. So we, thinking about twisting it or elongating it and then turning it. And really like this kind of rectangular form of the home, that footprint. And then what if we just rotate it, and then that would be a big house. We don't need to double the size of this house. So we want to scale it appropriately, but we want to keep it that kind of elongated form. So scaling it down and bringing it to the back here on the right image. And then we worked with some different roof types, shed roof, butterfly roof, and then we feel a gable roof will keep that more kind of diminished quality, not trying to make it pop up too high. Here's a little sketch on that, and really that even scaling it down was quite a bit of extra square foot, but we want to keep that elongated kind of slicing through the trees look. So maybe there's an extension onto that west side where it's just kind of a framed out patio. Some here's a kind of an existing kind of example of that in some Goodman homes here in Holland Hills. And then material considerations for this whole rear addition would be that same stained wood contrast. And then we're getting some plan and elevations, a little plan diagram to show you kind of the program of the existing, and then what the program would be of the addition, adding around roughly 700, 800 square feet right now. And then the existing plan on the left here, and the new work on the right. So from the north here, the entry would be coming right off the dining room. Our entry door on the existing right now comes in right at the chimney, so we want to keep that kind of same feel coming up from the stairs and from the driveway. So it's not facing the street so much. If it was on the north side, it'd be more facing the street. And then having the entry and closet here, but still enter into the house near the chimney, near the original flagstone. And then some reworking on the interior, and then the second floor over the back here. Key item here is aligning with this room here, the mechanical utility space, because the idea is just to run everything up through the floor and have maybe a slightly thicker second floor slab, so we can have a gabled open roof on that second floor. And then above the second floor plan here, showing the primary suite, mechanical spaces, laundry, and then taking that half bath from right now downstairs, taking it to the upstairs, and then the family room addition in the back, and this patio off of that. Blown up views of the first floor and second floor, and then the elevation views of those. We're getting into some more of the site planning. Here's the site plan, the setbacks. And we're working on getting a full landscape plan developed. And some of those landscape ideas that we did touched on earlier is that we get a lot of runoff from the west down this hill. And the back pavers back there, the brick pavers are not in such good shape. We've got a lot of pooling that's right around the chimney here in the front. So we want to landscape that more and to kind of capture that rainwater, maybe some kind of reflecting pool, water feature, but really more landscaping to kind of catch that water and retain it, and maybe some kind of underground cistern, because when it doesn't rain, the hill's really dry. So to irrigate those plants that we plant on there, we want to try to be as sustainable as possible. And then scheduling, we'll touch on that. But I'll just leave it there and open it up for comments.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. I will look to any of the board members that might have some comments on this one. Mr. Kalinsky, I see your hand up. By all means.
Sure. I think the applicant certainly took to heart what we said last time and kind of abandoned the enveloping the front of the house, the front end over top, and is, made the effort to push everything to the back and respect most of what's there. So I think that's a great improvement and a great start. And there's still obviously some more development of the design, but I'm assuming the applicant's looking for us to give him some direction to make sure he doesn't spend too much time developing something that we're going to chop down. So just let me just start with that observation. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Any other members want to chime in with their observations out of the gate? None from, oh, Elise, I see your hand up.
I too am much happier with this approach, and basically my feeling is I like this. I think it's good, and I'll leave it to the design professionals to quibble with you about how it gets executed. But I think that this is a much happier. It treats the original house with a lot more respect. I very much like it better.
I've got to agree with Miss Murray. While I will let the architects quibble with you about certain specific details, I think you definitely showed a walkthrough of concept and how you took our feedback on this. I think in particular, if we're starting to look at the evolution of Holland Hills going forward with additions, because while the entire district and obviously the intent was that there was this idea there could be growth and change going on there, I think it does need to be creative. And I think is a hallmark in my mind of, if it's going to be an addition, I want it to be a well thought through addition, not just a smack it on top of the roof. There you go, I've got my new floor space. And instead, I think this gets much closer to that concept and that approach, while still creating something that's in my mind is going to be a unique design. So it's not necessarily just humdrum either. So it's playing homage to the neighborhood and the community, while also being sensitive to the fact that you are dealing with a historic structure around it. So I have to agree with my colleague on this, but I know you're looking for us to give okay, well now let's start seeing design stuff too. And but I agree, that's the next I think that'll be one of the next big things I'll want to see as well, is how does it look in design and where are the tweaks and changes that might make it really sing and really complement the historic property. John, I see your hand come up. By all means, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just comment for everybody to know that Jeremiah and his wife Tiffany reached out to me, and I believe Mr. Kalinsky after last month's meeting to get feedback on the thing, and I think that that they have shown a great deal of flexibility and understanding in how to preserve the historic character of the house and yet meet their programmatic needs for a family. And so I think that that's very evident in the evolution of the design. I applaud them for going to the effort to track down the Dan Kiley plot plan and to try and make a design that would be compatible with Kiley's thoughts on how to design their lot. I also like the idea of using design features as the means of controlling the flow of water on a sloped site. It's something else that not many people in Holland Hills pay close enough attention to. And so that's an important thing. Since most of the heating ducts are undergrade, under slab ducts, last thing you want is water pressing against the side of your house because then you ended up with very damp or flooded ducts. So keeping the water at bay is an important thing to consider. So I think it's a very much improved design. I look forward to seeing it as it evolves. One thing I note is I believe that the design cantilevers, it sticks at the second floor level beyond the face of the masonry wall and beyond the back wall of the house. Yeah, there you go. Okay, and that's a good thing. It kind of hides that things don't always line up perfectly well with the house from between the first floor windows and second floor windows, and having that little bit of offset helps to disguise that, and so it's less apparent. And the one that you've got up right now that says G1 Newark North Elevation in the upper left corner of that drawing, is I can't tell, it's so small on my screen. Is the roof extended in this proposal, or will that be an open deck to start?
Open deck, but we're thinking of just some kind of framed extension to give it that illusion of
just continue the line of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing the next step in this proposal.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Ms. Swan.
Thank you. I also want to first thank you for the revision brought up today. It is much better, and thank you for pushing the massing to the back. I do have two observations. The first thing is I noticed the staircase. The existing staircase seems it doesn't work anymore, so you have a different layout on the staircase. By looking at the step, you might want to examine the height. If you have enough head height for the stair to turn and go up. So, but that's, I leave it to you.
We're definitely working on the stair placement and everything. So any suggestions there will be helpful.
Right, that will change your floor plan. That's one thing. The other thing is I browsing through to the last page, I noticed the project schedule, and I wonder what is a DRC review.
So that's the community review.
So that's not a building permit and site permit. So
right. No, that's I
want to bring your attention, perhaps you already know, I think that even though you have an ARB approval, you still need to go through building permit before goes on bidding, unless you want to bid the project concurrently with the building permit, which is usually not so recommended.
Okay.
Just two thoughts that I want to share. That will be all. But thank you for the revision.
Thank you.
Mr. Daniels,
Yes, Mr. Kalinsky.
if I could chime in with some, say, critique of the architecture, and firstly, reinforce what Samantha's saying with regard. It's a very optimistic schedule to get the
Yes.
building permit in short
Yeah.
order. So
Oh yeah.
it's unfortunately the stark reality of all the different departments around all the different jurisdictions and close by. So, but I think what Mr. Burns pointed out with the cantilever, very successful. What I really like about this on that new work east elevation D1, you're maintaining the window arrangement in the kitchen and the dining room. That was something that you were, say, altering before, and then,
right. We were having a solid panel in there before, but now we worked it out so we can have a continuous.
Yeah, I think that looks great. I mean, I think you're respecting the design elements that are common to Holland Hills. So I'm seeing a lot of positives in this design. I think it does need a little more development, but I think you're going in the right track, and it's a major improvement over what you had originally submitted before. So thank you for your efforts.
All right. It sounds like we've given you a lot of positive feedback, and it seems like we're headed in the right direction. Obviously, as you've heard from the other workshops, the journey is yours to choose where you go next. If you feel like you've got enough to go to a design phase and bring it forward to a proposal for the ARB for approval, you can come in for an action item. Obviously, you can always come in for another workshop. There's no limit on that punch card. So I leave that with your mind. Obviously, just like we've been saying before, we're going to need everything that a building permit would want to have as well, so that we can properly approve it.
Based on our schedule, I anticipate we'll come back for another workshop, just because we'll have time to fit it in anyway.
All right. Well, thank you again, and thank you for working with us to the 8:30 time. I appreciate you riding through it with us.
Thank you. Thanks for all the comments.
All right. That concludes our last workshop session and brings us on to our presentations for the night. We only have one presentation. You can thank your chairman. I trimmed it to one instead of two because I thought two was too many. The presentation is by the county consultant on the planned demolition of the historic courthouse wings and masonry repair the Fairfax County Courthouse. Brian, I need new glasses. Barna?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Okay, wow. I need to go see the eye doctor. With Whitman, Rickard and Associates is presenting from the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. Or no, excuse me, and as well as staff from the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. My wife was right. I need to go get glasses.
Yes, thank you for having us. We're here to present on our proposed work at the historic courthouse. The work consists essentially of the demolition of 3 ahistoric wings on the rear of the building, as well as masonry repairs all around the elevations of the building. With me, I have Qasim Alfaki, who is a registered architect with Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. He's the project manager on behalf of Fairfax County. I have Lonnie Hovey, who is an experienced historic preservation architect with Whitman Record and Associates. And is Justin here as well? We have Justin Femiamino as well, a project architect for Whitman Record and Associates. I'd like to turn this over to Lonnie Hovey to drive the bus for this presentation. If you could grant permission to Lonnie Hovey to take control and share his screen, we'll get the presentation started.
All right, we can see your screen, Lonnie, and so to get a presentation mode, we should be good to go. Perfect.
All right. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, you're good to go.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and ARB members. As Brian Barnum described, this project is for the demolition of the non-historic wings, letters C, E, and F at the Fairfax County Historic Courthouse. We have a quick little introduction on the teams and the context for this project. We'll mention the history of the courthouse and its construction, and then talk about the demolition of the non-historic wings and the subsequent repairs. So from Whitman, Reckward and Associates, our project team involves Brian Barna, our project manager, myself as historic preservation architect, Justin Fimiano, our project architect, Shiner Hassan, our project engineer, our structural project engineer, Andrew Bourne, our civil engineer, Il Kim, our electrical engineer, George Holzbach, our mechanical engineer, and Woody Sanner, a third-party construction cost estimate. I'll turn it over to Gassim to introduce his team.
Good evening, Chairman and board members. My name is Gassim Al-Faki. I'm a registered architect and a project coordinator in the Public-Private Partnership branch in the Building Design Construction Division in Department of Public Works for Fairfax County. Also, part of my team is Susanna Sertel. She's a professional engineer. She's the engineer 4 in the special projects in the Building Design Construction Division, along with Vinit Bahund. He is also a professional engineer, engineer 3 in the special projects in Building Design Construction Division. Next slide. Back in 2018, Fairfax County Judicial Complex Master Plan process began with the goal of providing the county a 20-year roadmap for the physical development of the site and to plan for more effective delivery of the county services to the community. The master plan was completed in January 2021, and the team came in front of the ARB twice in July of 2020 to present the vision of the master plan, and in December of 2020 to present the final master plan. What is presented here in the screen is the whole complex of the judicial complex. It's about 47.8 acres. And the final master plan came with new building 3, building 1, building 2 and 3, and also a new building for the diversion community in 3. Just to orient you, to the far right is the Chambridge Road, the 123, and on the top is the main street of the which have a private developer at that site. Also, part of the master plan is at the far left corner is to put workforce housing there. Next screen, please. This is an aerial view from the main street corner and the 123. And as you show here, the master plan recommended to remove the non-historic wings and also the sally port that was attached by a bridge to the wings, and to open the space in front of the courthouse and have a grand entrance in that area, and also align the street, West Street, to as a civic access to the existing courthouse. Along this axis, we're gonna build building 1, which now we just finished the concept design, and we are moving in schematic design soon after we negotiate the proposal. Next screen, please. This is another aerial view, show the existing courthouse, the historic courthouse, with the main grand entry, and the wings are not there. And also show a portion of the building one attached to the existing courthouse. Next screen. This is showing the existing historic courthouse at the back, where the civic access and the grand entry at that area, where we are removing the wings and opening that space to be a civic access there. Next screen. Just to give you an idea of where we are right now, and especially with money, Building 1 is in funding for Building 1 design was completed in 2022 carryover. So we should have the money ready for us to continue on design. The historic courthouse wing demolition design and construction also part of the carryover of the 2022. Judicial complex land use entitlement was funded through the 2023 budget, and the historic courthouse renewal design expected to be in the near future funding cycles, which will be a full renewal to the historic courthouse and adding the grand entrance at that area. For Building 1, the schedule is we completed the programming and conceptual design last April. We expected to start the full design in this fall, in 2022, through spring of 2025. And construction to start spring 2025 through fall of 2027. The entitlement, which the design started in June of this year, we expect the first submission to Department of Planning and Development is scheduled for January of 2023. For the historic courthouse wing demolition, our project that's in front of you, the design to be completed by November of this year, bidding and contract award to be next year in February, and construction to start next spring through summer of 2024. I think, Lonnie, it's next your slide.
Thank you, Gazim. So the historic courthouse is a series of wings that the numbers do not align with their dates. So the original wing is known as Wing G, and in the floor plan, diagrammatic floor plan at the bottom of the screen and in the picture in the upper right, that is Wing G, the oldest portion of the historic courthouse that was built in 1799 and occupied in 1800. Wing A, that's located to the south of Wing G, was built between 1930 and 31, and it was built with a center pavilion, small hyphens, and a wing to the south to mirror the original courthouse. Then wing B, C, D, and E were all built between 1951 and 53 to sort of expand on the original design with a major pavilion in the center with smaller hyphens and subsequent wings flanking them. And they created with wing B the largest of the center pavilions with a proposed bell tower or clock tower, similar to B, taller in stature than the original tower that is on the original courthouse. And our project, and then Wing F was built in 1991, which was a sally port and connected by a sky bridge to the second floor of Wing E. Our project is to demolish wings C, E, and F and that sky bridge, and to repair the west sides of Wing B and the west side of Wing D. And as part of that repair project and the demolition, it's also to involve repointing around the whole perimeter of the building, and some wings get a full repointing, and some areas just get some spot repointing. So here's an aerial of the site of the Fairfax County Historic Courthouse, highlighting wings C, E, and F and the Sky Bridge to show you that we are planning to demolish those 3 wings and the Sky Bridge and repair the west sides of wing B, which is the middle with the large tower, and then wing D, which is this smaller wing in size. It mimics wing A. And each of these pavilions that sort of jut out forward are all in line with the original courthouse, and their design mimics that original courthouse. And as part of the demolition, our goal is to retain as many, if not all, of the street trees and the site trees as much as possible with this demolition. Involved with the demolition of the project will also entail restoration of the site after these 3 wings are demolished. You can see wing C on the right, wing E in the middle, and wing F at the upper left. All those wings will be demolished, and then the site regraded and restored to lawn area at the moment. There are some loading docks that are located. There's a loading dock and a sloped driveway between wing C and wing E, and there's also similar sloped driveways to 2 entrances on the backside of wing D. And this project will retain retain the middle driveway to its loading dock at wing B. It will remove 1 loading dock that is to the south side of wing E, but retain the other loading dock that is south, the most southward of the drives that abut wing D. When the wings C and E are removed, an HVAC area that's between those 2 wings at the back of wing B will suddenly become much more visible. So the project is to temporarily screen HVAC equipment that is on top of a later addition to the back of wing B. As you can see in this left image here, we propose to mount a louvered slat wall panel system, wall mounted to the face of that mechanical room to screen on 2 sides that equipment. And then there's also ground mounted HVAC equipment and a dumpster that we will be screening as well at the grade level. There's also in the middle, let me back up. Let me show you with my cursor in the middle of the screen. This is where that HVAC equipment is located. And there's an existing oil tank that's buried under the ground right in the middle of these 2 wings that are being demolished. We had wanted to erect a brick wall to screen the ground mounted equipment in front of this HVAC boiler room, but the placement of the underground oil tank is such that we cannot install any perimeter walls around that ground-based equipment without impacting the oil tank below. So our proposal to screen this equipment at grade will be with slat-filled fences that are set on concrete block to screen that temporarily. The screen of the equipment at the upper level and around the lower level is sort of a temporary stage because part of the county's master plan for the historic courthouse is to do a full mechanical upgrade for the whole courthouse building, and that may remove and relocate some of this equipment. So the screening is really to screen it from view. That'll become much more prominent and the wings are demolished, but it will be, we think, temporary screening until part of that planning is done to figure out how to renew the mechanical systems for the building and where to locate that equipment. Here's an elevation of the west side of the building. Wing B is to the left, wing D is to the right, and this area between the 2 wings that are being demolished that shows how we will put that screen on the upper mechanical room building, and then the lower screen wall with the fencing. And then here's the proposed product. It's a screen wall that will be 12 feet high at the upper level, and it's aluminum louvered panels. The color hasn't been selected, but these are two examples of colors available in the manufacturer's line. The manufacturer is a Metco manufacturing company, and the panels can be 12 feet high and 12 feet wide. They come in a variety of different lengths. They can't be any longer than 12 feet, though. Let me describe the facade repair scope of work. In these two highlighted areas now on the screen, it's the same west elevation. We're looking at wing B to the left, wing D to the right, and this is where the wings C and E abut these two buildings. We will be demolishing those wings, repairing the brick facades, and installing new windows to mimic the existing size, type, and rhythm of the existing windows of that wing adjacent to where we're demolishing the one portion of the building in order to restore the patterning of windows across that face. The windows at wing B are fairly regular. There's 7 windows like this, 7 flat jack arch type windows, shallow arched windows at the top, and then flat double hung windows on the first floor. At the back side of wing D, it seemed like the intent of wing D was always meant to have the back be a back side of the building and not necessarily the front face. So the windows back there are much more smaller in scale and have a random patterning between the offices and the service rooms that are along that first and second floors. And we would just be trying to mimic that patterning, maintaining the same window heights and sill details as are existing. The masonry restoration scope, 2 of the facades of wing G, the older portion of the building, which had been restored in the 1960s, the east elevation and the north elevation as shown are 2 facades that are in really poor shape, and the entire facade needs to be repointed. And there, these darker patches that you see on these renderings is where we have severely deteriorated bricks that need to be removed and replaced with bricks made to match the original facade. Most of the repointing work around the rest of the historic courthouse will be spot repointing, but full repointing, as you can see here on these 2 facades, and there's a couple of other facades on the other wings that do require some sections of either a full facade or a full gable that needs to be repointed. We've taken samples from all the different facades to determine the existing mortar mixes. That is at a lab now being analyzed, and the results of those mortar analysis will help develop the restoration mortar mix for the repointing work. What we found is that the mortar sample from wing G, as we were extracting it, was a very soft mortar, and the sample just powdered to sand when it was collected. But the mortar that is used in the 1930s and the 1950 wings is a much harder, almost near full Portland cement mortar, very hard to get the mortar out of the joints there. So we will be considering a much softer and more compatible mortar mix for the repair of the facades for the repointing work. I have elevations from our mortar and our facade, brick and mortar facade study to just sort of show you. Here's wing A, all the areas that you see sort of in a tone that are on the facades are areas that require repointing. Almost all of the sills at the first and second floor windows need spot repointing either at the ends of the sills or the full length of the sill. Here's the east elevation at the top, west elevation at the bottom, that's wing A. Here's wing B, this is the east elevation of wing B, where we have some repointing that's needed in the gable and the south end. And one thing that we discovered when we were doing our analysis, there are some large sections on the face of the building, particularly here on the face of wing B, that it looks like the building had suffered a pressure washing. And there was some telltale trace marks of too high of pressure, having washed the face of the facade, and the brick the surface was slightly damaged that you can really see when you're right up on the brick. It's less obvious to the eye when you're at the street level, but when you're right up on the brick, you really see there was a too high pressure to clean the brick in these places. And that happens in a few other places on the facade. It happens on the south side of wing A in a couple of places, and south side of wing B. Here's the west elevation of wing B. You can see 4 of the existing second floor windows where there's a courtroom, and first floor windows, flat arched windows here. And this shows you the outline of where wing C is located. It just staggers right off of wing B, and where this wall would be removed, we'd be repairing all this brick, installing 3 new flat arch windows on the first floor and 3 new jack arch windows at the second floor, as tall as you see here for the courtroom. And this elevation, you can see the lower mechanical room to the right. And there is an exit that comes out of wing B from the basement level that comes up behind existing wing C now. And we would have to demolish the existing roof for that exit and build a new retaining wall for this stair coming up from the basement that would come parallel to the face of the back of wing B and then come perpendicular almost in the location of where the wing C facade is now in order to serve as a retaining wall. And so we will be demolishing the walls of wing C all the way down to below grade, and then rebuilding a retaining wall for this exit in order to maintain that exit coming up and adjacent to this mechanical room, and then out and away and out to the street. Here's the east elevation and west elevations for wing D, and you can see some larger areas where we have some repointing that needs to be done. Typically, many of these areas are where weather is hitting it the most, at the gable ends, at parapets, or around downspouts. Particularly wing D has just received a lot of weather and a lot of wear from water over the years since it was built in 1951 to 53. So some significant repointing is needed in some of these areas.
Lonnie, this is Justin. Sorry, just real quick.
Yes.
The chimneys also, I'm not sure if you mentioned it yet, but essentially every chimney that we surveyed needed significant repointing as well.
Right. Thanks for adding that in, Justin. I hadn't mentioned it, but you can see in all these drawings where the chimneys are darker, that's signifying all sides of those chimneys need to be repointed. Here are the north elevation and south elevations of wing D. The north elevation of that wing, it's a full repointing. And then some areas on the south side have some full repointing as needed. One thing that's interesting with the jointing for the masonry at the historic courthouse is all the mortar joints are made with a grapevine mortar joint. As you can see here on the left, a photo of the restored masonry from the 1960s at wing G, the oldest portion. But as you go around the rest of the building, the grapevine, the nice tooled grapevine joint is lost in wing A, B, C, D, E, and F. And it becomes, by the time you get to wing D and F, it's just a really quick chop with the trowel for the mason to create a line. The line does not stop at the horizontal joints, but cuts through them. Sometimes they're curved and slightly angled. It's just a really poorly installed grapevine mortar joint. And so the intent would be to try and get more of a consistent original pattern to the grapevine mortar joint, where the horizontal lines are consistent and the verticals stop and do not penetrate through the upper or lower horizontal joints, as you can see in this image on the left. Through our construction documents, this scope for the repair and repointing of the masonry would be detailed on the demolition drawings as a separate package with the masonry drawings. We would show details like this of the different steps to be able to restore removing the mortar and then installing the lifts of new mortar to be able to get to the right thickness that's needed in the tooling. We have some masonry that's on the building that some stonework that has been poorly repaired in the past. At the spring line for many of the arches that are on the front facade, the east facing facades at each of these arcades, there is a stone block that serves as the spring line for the arches. You can see here one of the last non-weathered and intact sections of stone with the tooling that's in place. And you can see upper left picture, an image where a patch was applied to it, a composite masonry patch with some poor tooling in it, and that has weathered off. We have another spot where the composite mortar patch has been applied, and again, the tooling is just really poorly executed. So part of this scope of work would be to carefully remove the badly executed repairs and to make new repairs with composite mortar, or where the stone has been lost so much, to install a Dutchman in stone. And we have some details in our documents that talk about Dutchman repairs and details, how to execute them, or executing a composite stone mortar patch. We have additional information for the context of the historical master plan and at the county webpage that you can access with these links. And with that, thank you for your time. We can open it to any questions.
All right, thank you for the very extensive presentation on this. Given the hour, I'll just ask if there are any members that have any questions. I'm sure this is not the last time we'll probably talk with you all about this project. The only question I think I had was going back to the time sequencing of these things, and I think that I'm just going to emphasize it up front that the board obviously is very concerned about the historic material that will remain, obviously getting the attention it needs so that it doesn't deteriorate further. I think that's one of the biggest concerns we had. Like, we're happy to see the non-historic wings go away, but I think one of the biggest concerns we had from our perspective was active deterioration occurring. And I think that was shared by our sister commission. So that would be I think I was trying to follow that, but that was so many slides back. What was the sequencing of this? So that might be helpful to understand real quick.
Sure. Kazim?
We took the concern about the brick situation and mortar very seriously, and we added to this project. It was not included before. It was supposed to be part of the renewal, which is coming just behind this project. And we expect to have, we submitted for funding in the carryover, which was just approved, but it was not approved for the renewal. So we are expecting that to be submitted in third quarter. And we're gonna try to get it approved in that. And if we have already the RFP ready for to get qualified architect to start the renewal of the historic courthouse. As I mentioned, because of the situation of the mortar and the brick, we work hard to get funding added to the project and to get this repair as part of our demolition project.
Okay, but the soonest we would expect some repairs to start on that is going to be, if I'm reading this right, spring of 2025.
No, the repair of the mortar is part of this project, which is going to start
okay, spring of
February next year.
That's sorry, and that's why I got a little confused by all the different timelines on here. I wanted to understand how many more freeze thaw cycles might that brick go through.
No. We are taking care of the brick and the mortar now.
Okay, then my question is answered.
All right.
I'm very happy to see this moving forward. Any other ARB members have questions or comments? John, I see your hand go up and I see your hand on your chin, so I feel like you've got a question.
Yes. First, hello, Lonnie. Lonnie,
Hi, John.
we've known each other for years. You mentioned very soft mortar in the original courthouse and presumably much softer brick than in the later additions. You also then mentioned harder mortar in the later additions. Did you discover any harder mortar used in prior repointing on the oldest part of the courthouse?
No.
That would be a lot tougher to deal with in repointing.
No, I didn't find or see any evidence of any really hard Portland mortars around Wing G, the original courthouse, but it's certainly in use at all the other portions of the building. The closest is sort of at the backside of Wing G, but it's really all part of the construction of Wing A that sort of wraps around the back of Wing G. That's as close as sort of the hard mortar gets back on this little portion, but that's all part of this 1930s construction, not the 1799 construction.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that there's no hard mortar in the oldest part.
Right.
When the demolition work is done on wing C and E, where it attaches to the part of the building that will remain, how much of the historic wall is there? Did they just cut openings for doorways to go through, or did they demolish the wall? I
No.
noticed in your elevation drawing of where building C will be removed, it just showed a blank wall above the roof of wing C. And I was wondering, are there ghosts of former arches over the windows in that wall, or?
What we discovered, let me go to that elevation here. When they built Wing B, they built Wing B, C, D, and E all at the same time.
Okay.
So there is no, we discovered looking through the original design and construction drawings, the brick wall on this backside of Wing B is a 4-inch brick width thickness of wall on an 8-inch CMU backup. When they get to Wing C, they dispensed with that brick entirely, and it's just a 12-inch thick CMU.
Okay.
So in some areas, like this whole second floor, our plan is to demolish that second floor section of wall in order to install a wall section similar to what's on the left of this wing. So we have an 8-inch block with a 4-inch brick face in order to get the windows cut into this face and the wall plane where Wing C was to be the same as the wall at that second floor.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's very helpful. One last comment on that particular elevation you have up there, and that is you might want to wait and do the repointing that's needed when the rest of the brickwork is done on that repaired facade, so that you don't have to match the match. Just do it all at the same time.
And that was a big component of why the county wanted to add the repointing into the demolition phase, so that when this wing is demolished, Wing C is demolished, and the repair of Wing B is done, the repointing of that entire wall can be done at the same time that they're rebuilding and cutting these openings, so that that mortar at the whole face, any of those spot repointing and all that work it all matches.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right, any other questions or comments? Not seeing any on my screen or on the participant hands. Again, I don't think I can express enough how excited we are to see this work taking shape and how that got integrated into the scope. So I think you have our support overall in this. Not seeing any other hands up, I thank you, gentlemen, for enduring the hour and coming to present for us.
Right. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate the feedback. And hopefully we're going to see you soon with our new projects.
Excellent. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you for having us. Goodbye.
All right. That takes us out of our presentations and brings us to our board and staff items. Denise, how you want to walk through these? You want me to do them or you want you to?
I'm calling up the agenda. I'm sorry, Chris.
I will.
Here we go.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
start. I'll kick it off first, as always. The review
Yeah.
and action on approval of the previous month's minutes. Did you receive any comments, Denise, prior to on those minutes?
I did not. I wasn't here in July, but I don't believe there were any comments.
All right. Any members have any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes and pay the recording secretary. All eyes fall on Jason.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the July 2022 ARB meeting minutes and to make payment to the recording secretary.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Swan. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Treasurer's report, ending balance as of July 29, 2022 is $26,046.07. Coffers sit full. Any questions to Denise on expenditures? Remember that obviously licenses and training is something that is available to you as ARB members to use those funds for. If you see something coming up to continue your education, by all means, Denise shares us a lot of opportunities. All right, Denise, I'll turn it over to you for administrative. Talk to us about the lovely Henron House telecommunications facility.
Yeah, okay. So I actually have this administrative item, and then I have another one that was added today. So we've got two to go through. The applicant proposed to remove 3 existing Sprint telecommunications antenna from the screened antenna enclosure on the penthouse and install 3 new antenna. So essentially switching them out, and then also remove 2 equipment cabinets from the platform on the building's roof and switch those out for 2 new equipment cabinets. This was a quick approval. They needed it done, that day. I got pinged for approval of a building permit that was waiting. So I consulted with Laura, and there had been precedent for this type of administrative approval done previously, because essentially it was a in-kind replacement. The antenna were going to be screened and the cabinets would not be visible. We went ahead and administratively approved it, and per your ARB policies, I'm bringing it to you all at this meeting because I was not here for July.
All right, any comments for Denise on that? All I got to say is that I had this brought up multiple times at the farmers market I go to in Reston at Lake Ann, that their card scanning devices were not working due to the cell towers. And I know I shared with many of you the articles that circulated around regarding the cell towers and how there's a very poor understanding of our role in the process. And there was barely a mention on the fact that the applicant was provided with opportunities to go elsewhere. But it was suspiciously not talked about. That part of the reason I don't think they wanted to do that was because they would have to go through the full public process. I'll remind them that the ARB is a public process too, but hey, what am I to say there? But okay, I don't think you have any feedback from us on that, Denise, but thank you for keeping an eye on this and keeping us updated on it.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry, Ms. Swan, by all means.
I saw a news on Reston Patch 2 days ago. Supervisor Alcorn was visiting
was it him holding the puppies?
Yes.
Yes.
And then the reporter just grabbed him and asked about Lake Ann things. So my understanding is he said no. Those antenna will go on to Huron Tower, and now they are seriously looking into to install 2 the new Fellowship House.
Yes.
Although it's not certain yet, but that's the direction heading to.
Yes, I saw that article too. And
Oh, cool.
I'm curious where the applicant is going to go with it. I think they'll have to really rethink their approach if they come back with proposing on the Henry House again.
Yeah.
All right. I see no other hands up there. Denise, what's your other administrative item you got for us?
Sure. So the second item that I'm bringing to you is on Monday of this week. I received an inquiry from a Lake Ann resident who noticed construction and demolition occurring at 1631 Washington Plaza in a commercial space in the Washington Plaza cluster, which is the U-shaped building. And wondering if there had been ARB approval for the exterior vent and fan unit that had been installed. So I found several MEP permits that had been issued for the address and confirmed that the plan submitted proposed to install exterior ductwork in a louver on an existing brick wall. So I reached out to the building permits department, who issued a stop work order for the work that was going on. And I will be reaching out to the contractor tomorrow to figure out next steps. And then we'll also be reviewing internally how this permit was allowed to be issued without ARB review and approval.
I thought Plus handled all that.
They're not at Plus yet. They're still using Fido. They will be integrating soon, though.
Oh, okay. You used another acronym I didn't understand, but sure.
Sorry.
Whatever that other type of dog that's not a beagle was helping with.
Oh.
No, I'm joking, Denise. Okay, well, yes, please keep us apprised what's going on there. That is shocking. I think I speak for all of us that we're always surprised to see how building permits get past us, even when they're in the midst of an HOD. All right. Seeing no indications of people having to talk on this one, discussions, updates, and reports. I'll take the rest and comp plan update, Denise. So right now, August 22nd is the last task force meeting in which they're going to be presenting the final task force version of the plan that they will be voting on and sending forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as to the Board of Supervisors, going through the next steps in the process. That'll include a updated heritage section that, if it gets all the way through, has pictures, has much more context about the heritage resources in Reston, as well as incentives for development to consider when they're looking at that, as well as encouraging owners of heritage resources to come to the ARB, even if they're not in an HOD, because we will be glad to lend our expertise to them. So I think that overall is an improvement on the last section. It's also, I'm just going to highlight two really unique things I'm just quite proud of. Is this will be the first comp plan update that will have a section focused on equity, as well as a section focused on community health. And in both those sections, which I helped write, there is emphasis on sense of place and sense of belonging. And heritage resources are emphasized in both of those, and highlighting that knowing what you're having a sense of place and a sense of feeling for a location is critical to being, one, feeling like you're in a healthy environment, and from an equity perspective, having places that are important to you preserved and protected is also important. So I think those are hallmarks for Reston, and the Reston Task Force really wanted to push that. So I think that's an exciting thing, only tangentially related to us, but hey, I'm happy to see it happening. All right, that's all I have on that one. Any hands? No hands. Historic courthouse repairs. Do we really have anything else on that one? I really feel like we got our brain dump on that. Okay. Lorton Workhouse master plan update. Denise and or Joe?
Update is there's a follow-up master plan meeting that'll be on the 17th from 7 to 9 p.m. And it's a flyer that went out to everybody. They can latch on to it if they would like. You'll get an invite to a virtual meeting, and that's about it. It's progressing along fairly decently with trying to incorporate private development with the county facility. So that's pretty much it. Nothing major.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Seeing any hands or waving from anybody? All right, let's talk about the big one, homes, run, acres, potential historic overlay district. We've had several members participate in both the in-person and the recent virtual meetings. Laura was there for one. Denise, you were there for the virtual one. So Denise, you want to give us any kind of summary on where we're at and what's happening next?
Sure. I just want to go back to the Lorton thing, if I may, just for a second.
Sure.
I just wanted to point out that if you do want to attend that workshop session, you need to RSVP and you'll get a link. So if people are interested, make sure that you read that flyer. There's a name on there to get that link. Staff held an in-person meeting on July 26th at the Woodburn Elementary School, and a virtual meeting 1 week later because the community had requested it on August 4th. So thank you to those ARB members who participated in the meetings, which included Chris Daniel, John Burns, Elise Murray, Kate Orr, and Samantha Wong. Staff also presented preliminary findings to the History Commission, and we're going to come to the Architectural Review Board at this September meeting. And public hearings have not been scheduled for this plan amendment yet, but we anticipate, if all goes well, we anticipate going to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors in early spring, February or so.
Any members have any comments or observations to share? The only thing I will add, just from my experience at the in-person meeting, is I think there was a very robust discussion about what it means to be an HOD. And I think sometimes that messaging is lost on folks as to, are we a design review board or are we a historic architecture review board? And do we actually focus on preservation or do we just focus on aesthetics? And so that's something I feel is constantly kind of watered in the mix. So I appreciate, John, I know you did a lot of heavy lifting during the last one. I think you did a great job responding to some of that. And I tried to do the same in the in-person one. I also think there's sometimes a misunderstanding as to who decides that there's an HOD, and that while we might make a recommendation, the Board of Supervisors ultimately decides this, and that the Architecture Review Board may recommend or support the idea of an HOD at homes or on acres, but we're not the ones that get to have the final say. And from a civics perspective, that's kind of where the final power rests in this decision process. And so I kind of have to give credit to staff, and I even know Laura, I don't think Laura's on this, but Denise, you and Laura and the rest of the staff have to endure a lot given the fact that you all aren't even the ones that are making the final decision. You're just making a recommendation. So I appreciate your efforts there. I think the big thing is, obviously, when this does come to us, we have to make sure our public meeting is run, our public side of this is run really well, so we afford the public a chance to provide comments, because I heard a lot of different feedback, both for and against, and we need to make sure everyone has their chance to provide their input on our decision, obviously. All right, not seeing any other oh, John.
Just to add on to your observations, it was very interesting that the brouhaha about the integrity of voting in our political processes in general spilled over into this HOD consideration, where people say, well, what if we vote twice? And, what if one spouse says one thing, one spouse the other says another? And so, there was a lot of distrust. And so it was disappointing to see that. And one comment really struck me is one woman said, all we wanted was control over massing. We didn't want any of this other stuff. And I think, like, what on earth are they talking about? So I guess what they're saying is that we don't want McMansions, but they don't care if they don't look like the rest of Homes Run Acres. They just don't want humongous things next door. So I'm not sure the HOD is giving them the answers that they sought if that was their intent. So I think some of the distrust may come from that.
And
it's
obviously,
interesting.
John, another
and by the way, staff, Denise, staff, folks, I think have been superbly restrained in dealing with the vitriol that's thrown their way. And my comment after the meeting to Denise was that, you know, if people don't like what's going on, don't yell at staff. Staff is doing what the Board of Supervisors tells them to do. If you don't like what the staff is doing, talk to your supervisor. And that's, you know, as one, they said, well, how can we just stop this dead in its tracks? I said, you get 70% of your neighbors to agree with you.
And I think this is equally complicated, and Laura talked to this during the in-person meeting about the fact that obviously COVID snarled much of this process. Just like with Holland Hills, we had what was going to probably be much more done more quickly, had to alter its course because of the environment we were in. Additionally, this district has a change in supervisors as well. So that was another huge change, that the person that initially was around is no longer the person representing you. So there was a lot of things going on in that meeting that I think you're right. Folks conveying their thoughts and sharing that, and I think that's we were trying to be as transparent as possible during our meeting. Another thing that kind of worried me, and thankfully Supervisor Grouse defended us, I think, very admirably during our meeting, was the question about bias if an ARB member does the design for a project in the new HOD. So if somehow folks hired Mr. Kalinsky and he did the new design, I tried to speak to that. Supervisor Grouse also kind of spoke to that, that obviously in those types of situations, ARB members recuse themselves from participating. I actually point out that we're very used to that actually in this board. Many of us have to recuse at various different points due to conflicts of interest. Mr. Plumpy, Mr. Burns, myself, we all know that. In addition to that, there was the question of bias on board members on if one of our fellow members helped design a project, that we would be more apt to support it, which was something I hadn't thought about before. But I also then caveated that just because we're all on a board together and we all appreciate our respective professions does not mean I agree with the design styles of various architects on our board. So just because Mr. Kalinsky is a great architect in his own right, I might not like his architecture. So that doesn't mean I would vote for it if it were, you know. So I tried to recognize that we are in ourselves independent experts, and that we do not come to that bias, and we recognize that. The supervisor defended that very well. So hopefully that came across, but we'll see where it plays out. All right, modern architecture survey, Denise?
No update for the modern architectural survey and no update for the Gum Springs study.
All right.
I do have an update for the Heritage Resource personnel.
Let's
So
hear it.
Laura Kaviklis will be starting on Monday as a replacement for the History Commission liaison position. And not a moment too soon. Yay. So yeah, really happy to welcome her on board. The Heritage Resources Planner 2 to write staff reports for the ARB. That position is open through tomorrow, being advertised and open through tomorrow. So if you haven't spread that far and wide, please do. And then the Heritage Resource Planner 2 limited term position, that is open until filled. So we're making progress on our staffing needs.
I think if there was one thing throughout all of this, Denise, and I think all of us saw this, is you all need more support. And that was something I think other members of the community brought up about the HOD. Some people did some maths on the number of houses in Holland Hills and the number of houses in Holmes Acres and said, is the ARB going to be capable of handling this? And so that I think is a very honest question. And I was happy to say and look at the supervisor during our meeting that we need that support if we're going to do this. So I'm happy to hear we're bringing folks on. Also, I will note Laura and I went to the same graduate program. She was coming in as I was going out. She's a sharp, wonderful young lady. So I look forward to hearing. Hopefully she works real well with the History Commission when she comes on board. John, is that your hand or a legacy hand? Okay. All right. correspondence and announcements? There are no other discussions or updates, right, Denise? So you got any?
No other discussions or updates, but I do have new correspondence. We got a membership renewal for you all for the National Trust. It is for your forum membership. It's $250. It expires in August. And I'm wondering if you want to renew that membership.
I would need a Miss Murray.
I move that the Architectural Review Board renew their forum membership in the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
All right, there's a
Second the
motion.
motion.
Seconded by Mr. Burns. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, there you go, Denise.
Thank you.
Fill out the form.
Okay. The second thing along those lines is the National Trust Past Forward Conference is going to be held November 1st through 4th. And with the forum membership, you get reduced conference registration. You get up to 10 people for $260. And in the past, the Architectural Review Board has participated in this. I think we have, I think until the end of September for the early bird registration. And I'm wondering if you all are interested in participating in the National
Is it
Trust
being held,
Conference
Denise?
again.
Is it virtual? Or
It's
is it being-
virtual,
okay.
all virtual.
All right, well, Elise and Samantha are indicating interest or raising a hand to talk.
What I'm voting is I will make a motion that the Architectural Review Board is interested in pursuing spending $250 that the Architectural Review Board votes to spend $250 to spend up to 10 people to the 2022 National Trust for Historic Preservation Conference.
It's 260, just to
260.
to clarify, yeah.
And that's 260 for 10 or 260 per person for 10?
For 10.
Oh,
Or 10, yeah. So $26 if you're sending 10 people, $26 a piece.
Is there a second on that? I saw a potential second.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Swan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right, well, I think there's only 10 of us that are active, so that means everybody could technically attend. I highly encourage it.
What's happened in the past is a number of people from staff have gotten to go on the ARB's dime, and I think that's been excellent. Not just our direct staff, but further down the line, and some of the archaeologists have attended as well. So I think that sharing the largesse with the county staff is good.
All right, well, so I agree with Elise. I think if anyone's interested, please reach out to Denise and let her know you have an interest in attending, and she can coordinate that. And then obviously I agree with Ms. Murray that if there's others that we could give that benefit to, let's do it within the county.
Thank you so much. And I'll send out a survey to see who would like to participate when I get ready to register people.
All right. Any other correspondence announcements? Old business.
Old business. I have two items for old business. One was the August recess that you all wanted staff to look into at the July meeting. During the July meeting, the ARB voted to implement an August recess starting in 2023 and moving forward, and directed staff to determine how to accommodate the recess. I consulted with the county attorney's office, who determined that a change in the ARB's bylaws would be needed, because the bylaws state that the ARB will specifically requires the ARB to meet regular monthly meetings on the second Thursday of each month. So that's the first hurdle, I guess, or maybe perhaps the only hurdle besides for scheduling.
So really what I'm hearing is we just have to undertake that bylaw process change if we want to do it, which I think the last time we did it, it took us about 6 months to get it in place. So we need to get something proposed probably in the next few months so we can get it into the docket for next year so that we can have it properly implemented. So Denise, if you want to take a crack at what we should have, I would openly welcome it, since you talked to the county attorney. I mean,
Sure. No, so I think you all have a bylaws committee. Is that correct? No. Okay. No.
we had a bylaws committee, I think, of Jason and myself at one point.
Okay.
I'm happy to work with Denise on that change to the bylaws.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you so much.
Volunteers emerged.
All right. And then my second item is the James M. Scott Exceptional Design Awards. It was requested that I find out when those might be held. We don't have a firm date yet, but what I heard was Marcia Collins, who is the staff coordinator for the program, anticipates holding the design jury meeting the second or third week in September. She's aware that the NOVA AIA chapter is having its design gala on Thursday, August 25th. And since the 2 chapter members participate on the design jury, she's scheduling it after that date.
So, for context on this, I had brought up the concept to me, obviously, because there was a lot of emphasis on the chairman of the ARB participates in this. And I partially understood as we were almost a glorified note taker because we were the ones that had to consolidate and write the opinions. And I felt a little like, well, one, I'm not an architect. 2, you don't want to see my note taking. But that being said, I committed that I might be able to do it. I asked Kate if she might be able to step up this year because family commitments involving infant and new school for our children kind of snarled my ability to really say, hey, I can do this for certain. But Kay also was like, we need to know when it's going to happen because this is not something you can just say, sure, just take us on. And it also was a question of, should we reassess our role in this, given the fact that 95% of the things that are on this are not preservation related in any way. And it feels like we were just picked because the word architecture was in our board's title. And that's how we got this fun mantle. Kay, I don't know if we can hear you anymore. I haven't heard you in a while, but I don't know if you have anything you want to add on it. Uh-oh.
I'm going to look and see if she's still on the line. She's muted.
Hey,
Okay,
Kay, I
can
think
you
we
hear
can
me?
hear
Here we
you.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an odd. John, you can speak to this. Well, Joe, y'all have all worked in this. We're chairing a design awards that the awards have nothing to do with what we do, and so I'm just kind of surprised that we're involved. But that's just, I don't know. I mean, I don't know when the last person actually showed even interest or talked about it in our group. It's just not. John, say something. I don't know. I know it's
okay.
something we've been doing forever, but anyway.
Yeah, we have been doing it forever. Traditionally, Chris, sorry, it was the chair was asked to be the chair of the jury. But I think your assessment of glorified note taker is absolutely spot on. And I would add an author of what I did on my summer vacation report that you have to read before the Board of Supervisors. And frankly, it's kind of a pain in the neck to do it. And then you have to go and you sit and you wait for the Board of Supervisors to get through all of their agenda till they get to the honors and awards stuff at the end, and have to go through the little, line them up, shoot them down, photography and all that. It's like, wow. And like you pointed out, nothing to do with historic buildings. Every now and then one comes across the threshold, but for the most part, it has nothing to do with that.
You're right.
And I've suggested a few times when we've had a project come in, I've said, this would be a great candidate for the Exceptional Design Award. Please remember to submit it. The Mount Vernon High School, there was,
Yeah.
there are other projects, and it became the question of, submit. All right, Steve, you were excused by all means.
Yeah.
But so I guess Denise, one of the questions is, it seems like we're written into something that we do this. How do we get unwritten from this if that's what we want to do?
I can go and go back and ask and see where the participation from the ARB originated and how you all became chair, and is there a way of backing out or altering your roles?
This may date back to when Bruce Kravisky was in your position, and that's all I'll go. So that was in the 1990s. Elise seems to be saying it went back further than that. So go ahead, Elise.
Whenever they started the program, that was how they did it. And the ARB just didn't object. For a long time, they had a history commission member sit on it as well, because for historic properties. But it really goes way back into the 80s.
Joe?
Yeah, I was going to say that, all right, let's say if we step out of this one and start a new one for historical site buildings, like we got a lot of stuff in Holland Hills now, do our own architectural awards thing from the historical sites that we look at. I mean, why not? It's not like we're getting a lot of applications right now.
Staff will kill you.
What's that?
Staff will
No, I'm
kill
just
you.
saying. I mean, if we have pride in what we do, maybe there's somehow we can recognize the people who do a good job, just like the county does overall. Just saying.
So Denise, maybe that is a good question. So I think the answer to your first one is going to be, why are we doing it? What's the mechanism that keeps us there? Maybe that'll answer a question of, well, what if the ARB ever wanted to give an award to something for what we actually do? What would we have to do that? Because I think if an ARB member saw a project that felt that we could make it in a way to try to alleviate staff pressure on it and call out a preservation project in some kind of award. I understand though Elise's point about I don't want to put more burden on staff, but yeah, I agree. I'd rather give it to something that we actually feel is related to what we do than, well, poor Patsy me is going to have to sit on a council with a bunch of architects, and they're going to find out I'm not an architect.
Frankly, I found it a lot of fun. They were a fun bunch to be with for the many years I did it back in the 90s and 2000s. So I
Right, the
really think
actual
you shouldn't be
day.
so apprehensive.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, agree.
Well, the day and the people it's writing, having to, I don't know. I just found the writing part because that's not my strength, and so that was the most difficult. But the day is fun. Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of people talking, but they're talking about big buildings. Primarily, it's these big commercial buildings and complexes and stuff, and so far from what we deal with. I don't know, just an observation from a newbie, an outsider.
All right. Well, Denise, once we get more info on the actual date, obviously, I don't think anyone on this, even myself, can commit until I know what a day would actually be to actually do it. It's hard to say sure when we don't know when that's going to happen right now yet. So once we find out that, but also it sounds like do you have enough direction on other questions?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yep.
I do have one announcement I want to throw out here. So I actually was able to touch base with Susan Knockins, our other colleague, today. I was able to contact her on the phone. Susan is doing well. She is recovering from surgery and is currently wheelchair bound, but she is doing well and going through rehab therapy to recover well from that surgery. I'm going to talk with Denise about some of the technology challenges that she's been suffering, because it seems like much of the communications I was sending to her, she has not even gotten. So we'll try to work on that front. But I wanted to let you all know, because we brought it up in the past, that we have not heard from Susan in some time. She's alive, she's well, so she's still here, and I will update you all more when I hear more about that. I feel like, Denise, this leads into a question that I kind of was wondering about. Are we coming back in person, or are we doing September digital again?
Okay, I don't have an answer for you. I will say though, it feels like they're priming us. I will say that. There is a new a new FOIA edition that will allow BACs to hold all virtual meetings without a declared state of emergency if they've previously announced it, and there's certain restrictions around like how many times they can do it per year. However, the Architectural Review Board is one of the public bodies that is exempt from this new FOIA allowance because you all do you make decisions. So essentially, the Board of Supervisors, the School Board, Planning Commission, Zoning Appeals, the BZA, and boards that have authorities to deny, revoke, or suspend professional occupation licenses. So I'm sorry to say that you will not be able to take advantage of a virtual meeting every once in a while. However, the History Commission will be able to do that if that's what they choose. You have to pass a policy, but it could be in their future. And the Architectural Review Board, however, has passed a policy for remote participation. So when we go back in person, there is a policy in place for Architectural Review Board members, and the members only. This is not the public participating, just the members. If there is, there are 4 reasons, and you all have adopted this policy, that you may participate remotely as long as you give advance notice to the chair and staff so that we can prepare that meeting, the technology that needs to happen so you can participate remotely. There is a change that is happening. Let's see. I'm sorry, coming next month, I'm going to send you all the draft updated change to the remote participation policy that you all passed that allows for one extra reason for a board member to participate remotely, and that is if your principal residence is more than 60 miles away. That's another reason that you may participate remotely. So I will frame that for you and send you out the revised version of your policy with a new language, and we can discuss it at the September meeting.
Is that physically possible when you also have to be a resident of the county? Actually solve that equation?
I don't know. Do you? Yeah, that's true.
I was getting Jason's shaking his head. I'm looking at my map of the county, and I don't. Could I, from the
That's crazy.
The northern end, make it happen?
Yeah. Let me ask
and
you
it does say specifically principal residence, so it's not just you're vacationing or your second home or whatever. So.
Let me ask you something. Was there any feedback from any of these parties or agencies, excuse me, that did they feel that they get better attendance from the general public, not necessarily the board, with the virtual meetings? Because I mean, I've been on other boards and participating in other boards, as a guest and in DC and everything. They say virtual is the way to go. I'm not saying hey, they can't. The county is the county, but I'm just thinking the participation of the residences are off the chart when it becomes virtual, in my opinion. But which is great. But so you're telling me that the residences cannot do virtual, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, let me back up. For the all virtual public meetings policy that I talked about at the top of this discussion. So for the History Commission and other boards and authorities, they will have remote participation by the public.
Yeah, I got that. But ours, everybody has to come in person like it used to be, which unfortunately I feel that hurts our attendance, because I tell you, these meetings have been dragging on, till 10 o'clock, whatever. So if virtual would be awesome for the people who are sitting and waiting instead of waiting in our room for so long. Just thinking out loud.
I wonder if the chair of the Holland Hills board will actually attend our meetings in person then, because she's been commenting on every one as what the designer group says.
Wow.
I mean, is she going to drive to the government center every month?
Something to think about. I don't know.
So this is not coming from the county. This is the state, the Virginia a Freedom of Information Act that governs this public body, the conduct of the public bodies.
That's
So this is
interesting.
a state law.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe the state needs to open their eyes a little bit, maybe, and kind of listen to grassroots what is going on. But we're just a small pawn in the scheme of things. But it just seems, again, I see in other jurisdictions they still have the virtual for the people to contribute. But whatever, I'll be quiet. Thanks.
All right. I think my only comment, Denise, is going to be the sooner the better. If we're meeting in person in September, we need to know. I don't think it's very fair to drop that on us late in the game. I mean, I get that we used to do it, but that is still a change from how our operation is going to be. We've gotten very accustomed to this, and yeah, we're going to have to go back eventually, but I prefer not to find that out the week of. I would prefer to know a little more in advance so I can make a plan accordingly.
Yeah, me too. I mean, yeah. Right now, yeah.
Sorry, Joe. Don't we have to make public announcements of when meetings would be and what their place and location and all that sort of stuff?
Yes.
I mean, they can't pull this at the last second.
No.
We have to give public notice, so
That's
be a
correct.
while.
Yep. It is August 11th. I think the closer we get to the midway mark, I would assume the further away an in-person meeting is going to be.
I'm thinking as well about submission materials. That's going to be a problem if folks aren't. I mean,
Yep.
Am I getting paid to bring my tablet to go look at the plans while I'm sitting there? And that's not a question for you, Denise, to answer. I'm just being snarky like Joe here. But we need to make sure that's all sorted out so that everything is appropriately arranged.
So it sounds like we have $27,000 to everybody get an iPad from the ARB coffers. There we go.
You
Just
can't look
saying.
at big drawings on a 9-inch screen.
No, John. Look at the 15-inch iPad.
Still.
I know. I hear you.
Yeah, we're going to need giant wall-sized screens at the end of whatever room we meet in.
Well, John. I know you always brought up, which is a good concern of mine too. Is what is our room going to be like? Is it like the same old thing, or is it, is there going to be? Is there any electronics involved or not? Or it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it's going to be the same old thing, just 3 years old.
Denise, I know you got a lot on your plate to figure this out. And
Yeah,
obviously,
sorry.
I meet with Denise in advance of our meetings. So Denise, you can always pick up the line to talk to me about it. And we'll sort it out. But again, unless there's any other comments on it, the hour is late. Even with one action item, we rambled on. I won't blame the workshops this time, actually. I'm actually going to blame our presentation.
Yeah, the presentation was a little long.
All right. Anything else, Denise, or are we good?
Nope, that was it for me. Thank you.
All right. A motion to adjourn from one of the members?
So moved.
All right. The motion to adjourn is always in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. No one opposed, I assume, and no abstentions. The motion passes. Good night, everybody.
No problem.
Good
Have a good
night.
Labor Day.
Good
See you
night,
guys. Bye-bye.
everyone.